There is a moment at the very end of regular show where the screen goes quiet. Not silent, quiet. The kind of quiet that settles over a room after something enormous has just happened, and nobody knows what to say yet. The park crew is standing together, older now, 25 years older, gathered around a statue of someone who is no longer with them. The grass is the same grass. The benches are the same benches. The sky is the same impossible cartoon sky that has watched over every fistfight and every cosmic explosion and every mundane afternoon these characters have ever lived through. But everything is different, because someone is missing. And the people who remain have become versions of themselves that the show spent 8 seasons carefully, patiently, sometimes painfully building toward. Regular show ran for 244 episodes across 8 seasons on Cartoon Network, from September 6, 2010 to January 16, 2017. It was created by J.G. Quintel, who voiced Mordecai himself, and it began as something deceptively simple. 2 slackers at a park, a gumball machine who yells at them, an immortal yeti who fixes everything, a man with a lollipop for a head who finds joy in the smallest possible things. And then, episode by episode, season by season, the show did something that most animated comedies never attempt. It let its characters grow. It let them fail. It let them make decisions that could not be undone. And in the end, it gave every single one of them a conclusion that was not just satisfying but true. True to who they had been from the very beginning, and true to who they had slowly, sometimes reluctantly, become. This is a video about those endings. Every character, every resolution, every quiet goodbye the show offered in its final hours, and in the years of storytelling that led up to them. Because the endings of regular show are not just plot points, they are the culmination of one of the most thoughtful character studies that American animation has ever produced, and most people walked right past them. Welcome to Velvo. Get comfortable, settle in, turn the lights down low. This is going to take a while, and that is the point. If you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Now, let us get into it. To understand how regular show ends, you have to understand what it was actually about. And what it was actually about was not 2 friends working at a park. It was not supernatural chaos erupting from mundane situations. It was not even the specific, loving nostalgia for 1980s culture that the show wore like a second skin. Those were the mechanisms, the engine underneath all of it. The thing that made regular show matter in a way that outlasted its time slot was a single question. What happens when you stop being a kid and there is no manual for what comes next? Mordecai and Rigby are 23 years old when the show begins. They have jobs they do not care about. They have ambitions they cannot articulate. They have a friendship that functions as the last remaining structure from a childhood they are not ready to leave behind. And every single episode, underneath the giant floating heads and the sentient video games and the death battles over stolen grilled cheese sandwiches, the show is asking the same thing. Are these 2 going to figure it out? Are they going to grow up? And if they do, what will they lose in the process? The answer, as it turns out, is everything and nothing. And that contradiction is the entire point. Regular show understands something about growing up that most coming-of-age stories miss. The loss is not a side effect. It is the mechanism. You do not grow up despite losing things. You grow up because you lose things. You lose your laziness and gain responsibility. You lose your romantic illusions and gain the capacity for real love. You lose your best friend's constant presence and gain the knowledge that the friendship survives distance. You lose your innocence and gain the ability to see the world as it actually is, complicated and painful, and beautiful in ways that innocence could never perceive. That is the exchange. That is the deal. And regular show traces that exchange across every single character in its ensemble, showing you what each of them loses and what each of them gains, and trusting you to decide whether the trade was worth it. For Mordecai, the trade is romantic failure for artistic fulfillment. For Rigby, the trade is the comfort of avoidance for the peace of earned contentment. For Benson, the trade is righteous anger for quiet satisfaction. For Skips, the trade is everything. Everything, forever, in exchange for the ability to protect the people he loves. And for Pops, the trade is the most extreme version of the show's central equation. Pops trades existence itself, his life, his future, his chance to grow old and change and become something new. for the certainty that the people he loves will get to do all those things without him. That is not a sacrifice in the abstract sense. That is a transaction. Pops buys permanence for his friends by spending his own life. And the currency is exact. The price is everything he is. Let us start where the show itself chose to start its final act. Let us start with Pops. There is a version of Pops Maellard that exists in most people's memories as a gentle joke. The naive man, the childlike eccentric with the high-pitched laugh who calls everyone good show and does not understand how the world works. He is the comic relief's comic relief. The character you smile at but do not think about too deeply. And for 6 seasons, the show seemed perfectly content to let you believe that was all he was. A sweet, strange man in a world full of sweet, strange things. But go back to the beginning and watch Pops again, knowing what you now know. Watch Really Real Wrestling, Season 2, Episode 20, which aired on May 16, 2011. Mordecai and Rigby accidentally injure Pops' back, and while they sneak out to a wrestling event, Pops follows them. He shows up at the arena and is immediately mistaken for a wrestler. And Pops, sweet, trusting, earnest Pops, does not correct anyone. He does not understand that the situation is dangerous. He does not process the world as a series of threats the way the other characters do. He processes it as a series of invitations. Someone wants him to wrestle. How delightful. He has never wrestled before. What fun. That innocence, that pure, unshielded openness to experience, is what the show builds Pops' character on for 6 straight seasons. He is the person who walks into every room expecting it to be wonderful. He is the person who responds to danger with curiosity, rather than fear. He is the person who sees a world full of hostility and chaos and violence, and somehow, impossibly, chooses to see it as good, as a good show, as something worth applauding. And that is what makes the cosmic reveal so devastating. Because the show is not just telling you that Pops is powerful, it is telling you that his innocence was never naivete. It was choice. It was the choice of a being who has seen the worst thing in the universe, who has witnessed infinite destruction, who carries within himself the memory of every failed cycle and every reset reality, and who still chooses to believe that people are good, that the world is worth saving, that a sunny afternoon at the park with friends who care about each other is reason enough to exist. The innocence was not ignorance, it was faith. And that distinction is what separates Pops from every other innocent character in animation. Then Season 7 started pulling at a thread, and by the time Season 8 was finished, that thread had unraveled into something so enormous, so structurally ambitious, so emotionally devastating, that it retroactively changed the meaning of every single scene Pops had ever appeared in. The truth about Pops, the truth that the show spent its entire final season revealing, is this. He is not a man with a lollipop for a head who happens to work at a park. He is a cosmic entity, a being of pure good, created on a world called Lollyland, born to fight an eternal battle against his opposite, his twin, his shadow. Anti-Pops, the embodiment of destruction. And they have been fighting this battle forever, not metaphorically, literally. Across countless cycles of universal creation and annihilation, Pops and anti-Pops have clashed. And every single time, the result has been the same, a stalemate, a reset. The entire universe destroyed and rebuilt, and the fight begins again. Every version of reality, every version of the park, every version of Mordecai and Rigby and Benson and Skips, all of them have existed before, countless times, playing out the same roles, fighting alongside Pops and losing. Think about what that actually means. Think about the weight of it. Every mundane afternoon at the park, every argument about who has to mow the lawn, every moment of genuine human connection these characters have shared across 8 seasons of television. All of it has happened before. All of it was erased. All of it meant nothing, over and over and over again, because the cycle always reset and nobody remembered. That is the revelation that Season 8 drops on the audience. The show you have been watching, the show about 2 slackers and their weird jobs, is actually about the latest iteration of an infinite cosmic war. And the kindest, gentlest, most innocent character in the entire cast is the one at the center of it. Anti-Pops, also known as Malum Cranus, is voiced by Robert Englund. That casting is not accidental. Englund is the man who played Freddy Krueger, one of the most iconic horror villains in cinema history, and the show uses that association deliberately. Anti-Pops is not just a villain, he is the nightmare version of everything Pops represents. Where Pops creates, Anti-Pops erases. Where Pops builds connections, Anti-Pops severs them. Where Pops sees the world as something beautiful and worth preserving, Anti-Pops sees it as something broken and worth destroying. He has the power to erase people from existence entirely. Not kill them. Erase them. Remove them from reality as if they never existed at all. That is a specific kind of horror. Killing acknowledges that you were here. Erasure removes even the evidence. And during the finale, Anti-Pops uses that power. He erases nearly everyone. The park workers, the allies, the friends Pops has spent 8 seasons building connections with. One by one, they vanish. Not into death, into nothing. Into the gap between existing and never having existed. Until only Mordecai, Rigby, and Pops remain, standing on what is left of reality, looking at the space where their friends used to be. The finale, a regular epic final battle, aired on January 16, 2017. It is a 3-part episode, the 244th and final episode of the series. The third part carries the title, The Power, a callback to the very first episode of the series, which was also called The Power. That structural bookend is not decorative. It is the show telling you that the ending has always been contained in the beginning. The first episode was about power, about what happens when ordinary people gain the ability to reshape reality. The last episode is about the same thing, except now the stakes are infinite and the cost is real. And the thing that makes the finale extraordinary is not the scale of the conflict, though the scale is massive. It is not the animation, though the animation is gorgeous. It is the solution, the way Pops chooses to end the cycle. Because he does not win the fight. He does not overpower Anti-Pops. He does not find a clever trick or a secret weapon or a loophole in the cosmic rules. He hugs him. That needs to be stated plainly, because the simplicity of it is the point. After an eternity of violence, after countless universal resets, after watching his friends get erased from existence by Anti-Pops' power, Pops makes a choice that no version of him has ever made before. He stops fighting. He reaches out. He wraps his arms around the being that exists solely to destroy him. And Anti-Pops, who has never once in all of infinity experienced genuine kindness, does not know what to do with it. The cycle cracks. The pattern breaks. Not through force, through love, through the specific, radical, impossibly brave act of choosing compassion when every piece of evidence in the universe says it will not work. And then Pops flies them both into the sun. Let that sit for a second. The show's most innocent character, the one the audience spent 7 seasons gently laughing at, the one who seemed to exist in a permanent state of childlike wonder, turns out to be the most important being in the entire universe. And his defining act is not a battle, it is a sacrifice. He holds his brother, the destroyer of worlds, and he carries them both into the fire. Not because he wants to die, because it is the only way to make sure the cycle stays broken. The only way to make sure that this time, the universe does not reset. The only way to make sure that his friends' lives, their growth, their relationships, their futures, actually mean something. Pops dies so that regular show can have a real ending. Not a reset, not a loop, an ending. That is the structural truth of the finale, and it is also the emotional one. The show cannot give its characters permanent, meaningful conclusions unless someone pays the price for permanence. And the someone who pays it is the character who had the most to lose, because Pops loved being alive more purely and more completely than anyone else in the cast. There is an image in the finale, after the sacrifice, after the park dome has flown back to Earth, after the crew has reunited with their families and friends. A memorial statue stands in the park. Pops, rendered in bronze or stone, forever smiling, forever looking out over the grass where he used to play. Mr. Maellard, his adoptive father, stands before the statue, and he weeps. This is a man who spent the entire series being gruff, distant, occasionally cruel. A man who could not say his own son's name correctly. And now his son is gone, and the only thing left is a statue and a silence that will never fill. The show does not comment on this. It does not add a voiceover to tell you how to feel. It just holds on the image. An old man, a statue, a park that looks exactly the same as it always did, except for the hole in the middle of it where a person used to be. But the show is not done with Pops yet, because in the very final moments of the series, after the 25-year time skip, after we have seen what every character's life became, the camera finds Pops one last time. He is somewhere else, somewhere warm and bright and undefined, an afterlife maybe, a different plane of existence. It does not matter what you call it. What matters is what he is doing. He is watching a VHS tape. The tape is labeled regular show, and on the screen he sees his friends, all of them, living their lives, growing old, having children, finding the peace that his sacrifice made possible. He watches the whole thing play out, this gentle, sweet, impossibly kind man who gave up his existence so that theirs could continue. And when the tape ends, when the story is over, Pops ejects the cassette, smiles, and says the only thing he could possibly say. Jolly good show. That is Pops's ending, not the sacrifice, though the sacrifice is the mechanism. The ending is the watching. The ending is a man who loved the world so much that he died for it, getting to see, from somewhere beyond, that it was worth it. That the people he loved are okay. That the story was good. That is not a cartoon ending. That is not a children's show wrapping up a plot thread. That is a meditation on what it means to give yourself completely to something, and to find peace in the giving. J.G. Quintel, the show's creator, described Pops's sacrifice in an interview as symbolizing the sadness and loss that comes with the kind of maturity the rest of the characters finally attained. And that framing is crucial. Pops does not die so the show can have a dramatic climax. Pops dies because growing up costs something. Becoming a real person, with a real life, with real stakes, requires leaving something behind. And the thing regular show chose to leave behind was its most innocent character, the one who never needed to grow up, the one who was already perfect. That is not a small thing. That is the show telling you, in the clearest possible terms, what it believes about life. That innocence cannot survive contact with the real world, that the price of permanence is loss, and that the only appropriate response to that loss is gratitude. Jolly good show. What else is there to say? Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Pops's sacrifice made the future possible, but the future itself, the specific shape it takes for each character, is where the show reveals what it has really been building toward for 8 seasons. And nowhere is that revelation more surprising, more debated, and more quietly perfect than in the ending it gives to Mordecai. There is a question that regular show fans argued about for years. It was the question that launched 1,000 forum threads and 1,000,000 comment section wars. It was the question that the show itself seemed obsessed with, devoting entire seasons to exploring, complicating, and ultimately refusing to answer in the way anyone expected. The question was simple. Who does Mordecai end up with? Margaret or CJ? The answer is neither, and the answer is everything. To understand why that answer is not a cop-out, but is instead the most honest thing the show ever did, you have to trace the full arc of Mordecai's romantic life. And that arc is not a love story. It is a story about a person who does not know how to love yet, learning what that costs. Mordecai meets Margaret Smith in the first season. She works at the coffee shop across from the park, a cardinal with a warm voice and the kind of effortless confidence that Mordecai does not have and desperately wants. His crush on her is the most conventional thing about regular show. Boy meets girl. Boy cannot talk to girl. Boy spends dozens of episodes finding excuses to go to the coffee shop while pretending he is not finding excuses to go to the coffee shop. It is sweet. It is familiar. It is the kind of romantic tension that animated shows have been running on for decades. And the show lets it play out. Slowly, patiently, over 4 full seasons. It lets Mordecai fumble and fail, and occasionally make progress. In Do Me a Solid, Season 2, Episode 18, which aired on May 2nd, 2011, Mordecai ropes Rigby into a double-date scenario with Margaret, Eileen as Rigby's reluctant date, and the whole thing collapses under the weight of favors owed and social awkwardness. The episode is funny in the way that watching someone try too hard is always funny. but it is also a portrait of a person who does not trust the natural flow of human connection. Mordecai does not just ask Margaret out. He engineers situations. He creates pretexts. He builds elaborate scaffolding around the simple act of telling someone how he feels, because the simple act terrifies him more than any supernatural threat the park has ever produced. That is the specific irony of Mordecai's romantic life. He can fight monsters. He can face death. He can stare down cosmic entities and interdimensional villains without flinching. But he cannot walk up to a woman he likes and say, "I like you." The mundane is harder than the extraordinary. The personal is more terrifying than the cosmic. And the show knows this. The show builds its entire romantic arc on this knowledge. There are double dates. There are misunderstandings. There are moments where they almost connect, and moments where Mordecai's inability to express himself pushes them apart. The show treats his feelings as real, as worthy of time and attention, even when they are also the source of comedy. Because that is what regular show does. It takes things that seem like jokes and reveals them to be true. The culmination comes in Stake Me Amadeus, Season 4, Episode 37, the season finale. It aired on August 12, 2013. And it is one of the bravest episodes of television regular show ever produced, because it gives Mordecai exactly what he has been asking for and then immediately takes it away. Mordecai asks Margaret to be his girlfriend. She says yes, and then she tells him that she got into her dream college. She is leaving. The thing he wanted, the thing he spent 4 seasons reaching for, arrives and departs in the same conversation. He gets the yes and the goodbye in the same breath. The scene is devastating, not because of what happens, but because of the gap between what Mordecai expected and what he received. He spent 4 seasons working toward this moment. 4 seasons of longing and awkwardness and near misses and all the specific, excruciating labor of trying to turn a crush into a relationship. And the show rewarded that labor. Margaret said yes. The universe aligned. The story reached the ending that stories like this are supposed to reach. And then the show pulled the rug out. Not cruelly, not for shock value, with the same honesty that defines everything regular show does at its best. Margaret has a life that is not about Mordecai. Margaret has ambitions that existed before he asked her out and will continue to exist after she leaves. Margaret is a person, not a destination. And the moment Mordecai gets what he wants, the moment the romantic arc reaches its apparent conclusion, the show reminds him, and the audience, that other people are not resolutions. They are people, with their own trajectories, their own timelines, their own departures that have nothing to do with you. The show aired that episode as a season finale, as the last image the audience would carry through the hiatus. Mordecai, standing alone, having gotten everything and lost everything in the span of a single conversation. That is a bold choice. Most animated shows end their seasons with cliffhangers designed to create excitement. Regular show ended season 4 with heartbreak designed to create understanding. Not the understanding of a plot twist, the understanding of a life lesson. Sometimes the timing is wrong, and no amount of wanting changes that. This is not the behavior of a show that is playing it safe. This is the behavior of a show that understands something essential about being 23 years old. Sometimes you get what you want, and it does not fix anything. Sometimes the timing is just wrong, and no amount of wanting changes that. The universe is not structured around your romantic desires. That is not cruel. It is just true. After Margaret leaves, the show introduces CJ, Cloudy J, voiced by Linda Cardellini. And CJ is, in almost every measurable way, a better match for Mordecai than Margaret ever was. She likes the same things he likes. She laughs at his jokes. She does not require him to perform confidence he does not have. She meets him where he is. Their relationship begins in season 5, solidified in an episode called I Like You High, which aired on May 12, 2014, where an auto-corrected text message accidentally reveals Mordecai's feelings. It is clumsy and authentic, and exactly the kind of thing that happens in real relationships. And Mordecai ruins it. Not quickly, not dramatically, slowly, through a series of choices that are not villainous but are cowardly. He cannot let go of Margaret. Not because he loves Margaret more than CJ, because he does not know how to close a door. He does not know how to commit to the person in front of him while the memory of the person who left still has a hold on him. The breaking point is Merry Christmas, Mordecai, Season 6, Episode 10. December 4th, 2014. Margaret comes back to town for Eileen's Christmas party. Mordecai is there with CJ, and in one terrible, slow-motion moment, his conflicted feelings surface in a way that CJ can see. The show does not frame this as a love triangle. It frames it as a failure of character. Mordecai is not torn between two great options. He is paralyzed by his own inability to choose, and that paralysis hurts the person who chose him. The final break comes in Dumped at the Altar, Season 6, Episode 28, June 25th, 2015. The season finale, Muscle Man and Starla's wedding. Mordecai is supposed to give a speech, and instead, the whole tangled mess of his romantic life collapses in public. CJ leaves. For good. The show does not give them a reconciliation. It does not give them a maybe someday. It gives them an ending that feels like the endings most real relationships have. Not with a dramatic fight, with a slow realization that this is not going to work, followed by a silence that nobody fills. Think about what the show just did. It spent 4 seasons building one relationship. Then it spent 2 seasons building another, and it let its protagonist fail at both of them. Not because of supernatural interference. Not because of a villain or a cosmic force or a plot device. Because of who he is. Because Mordecai, at his core, is a person who cannot commit. A person who wants to be in love more than he wants to do the work of actually loving someone. A person whose fear of closing one door keeps him from walking through another. That is not a comfortable thing for a show to say about its main character, but it is an honest one, and it is that honesty that makes his actual ending so powerful. In the 25-year time skip at the end of the series, we learn what happened to Mordecai. He leaves the park. He stops being a groundskeeper. He goes back to art, the thing he was studying before he dropped out of college, the thing he abandoned because it was too hard or too uncertain, or too much like admitting what he actually wanted. He becomes a painter, a real one, a successful one. He has gallery shows. He makes things that matter to him. And he meets someone, not Margaret, not CJ, a Batwoman named Steph. They meet at an art gallery where they are both showing their work. They fall in love. They get married. They have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. The show does not give you Steph's backstory. It does not explain what makes her different. It does not dramatize their courtship or show you the moment Mordecai finally learned how to commit. It just shows you the result. A man in his late 40s, surrounded by a family, doing work he cares about, at peace. And the reason that works, the reason it does not feel like a cheat, is because of everything that came before. Mordecai's ending is not about Steph. It is about the fact that he had to lose Margaret and CJ before he could become the person who deserves Steph. He had to fail. He had to hurt people. He had to sit with the consequences of his own cowardice. And then he had to change. Not in a dramatic, one-episode transformation. In the slow, invisible way that people actually change. Over years. In silence, without an audience. J.G. Quintel confirmed in interviews that this was always the plan. Mordecai, he said, messed it up with both Margaret and CJ. The story was about him learning from his mistakes and moving on. Not circling back to an old relationship because the audience wanted it. Moving forward. Becoming someone new. That is Mordecai's ending. Not a romance. A reckoning. A man who spent his 20s failing at love. Not because he was unlucky, but because he was not ready, finally becoming ready. Too late for the people he hurt, right on time for the person he meets next. And there is something almost unbearably real about that, because that is how it works for a lot of people. The person you end up with is not the person you spent years pining for. It is not the person you almost got right. It is the person you meet, after you have done enough damage to yourself and others that you finally understand what you actually need. The person you meet after you have grown up. And you only grew up because the earlier relationships forced you to. Regular show understood that, and it had the courage to commit to it, even knowing that half the audience would be furious. Margaret fans wanted Margaret. CJ fans wanted CJ. The show said no. The show said the point was never which girl Mordecai picks. The point was Mordecai learning to pick himself, to figure out who he is before he tries to figure out who he is with. And the fact that the show made that choice, in a medium where romantic resolution is treated as mandatory fan service, is one of the bravest things it ever did. There is a moment in Just Friends, Season 7, Episode 12, which aired on November 11, 2015, where Mordecai and Margaret finally have the conversation that the show has been avoiding for 2 full seasons. They sit down, they talk, they acknowledge the feelings that were there and the feelings that have changed. And they agree, clearly, openly, without drama, to remain friends, platonic friends. Friends who had something once and let it go, and found that the letting go did not destroy the foundation underneath it. The show handles this scene with an almost clinical precision. No romantic music, no lingering glances that suggest maybe, someday, they will try again. Just 2 people who used to want each other sitting in the reality that wanting is not the same as being ready. Margaret moved on a long time ago. Mordecai is only now catching up. And the gap between their timelines, the fact that she processed this loss years before he did, is itself a commentary on how differently people heal from the same experience. That scene is the real end of the Margaret and Mordecai story, not the departure in Season 4, not the awkward Christmas party in Season 6. This conversation, this quiet, mature, deeply unglamorous agreement to stop being a love story and start being something more durable, a friendship, the thing they probably should have been all along. There is one more thing about Mordecai's ending that deserves attention. His career, the fact that he becomes an artist, because that detail is not random. It is the completion of a thread that runs all the way back to the first episode. Mordecai dropped out of art school. That is established early in the series. He went to college to study art. He could not hack it. And he ended up as a groundskeeper at a park alongside his best friend from childhood. That is the starting position. That is the baseline. And for 8 seasons, art exists in the background of Mordecai's life as the thing he gave up on. The road not taken. The version of himself that he was too afraid or too lazy or too comfortable to pursue. And then, after everything, after the cosmic battles and the broken relationships and Pops' sacrifice, he goes back to it. He picks up the thing he dropped, and he carries it forward. Not because the show needed to give him a happy ending, because the show understood that growing up is not about leaving your dreams behind. It is about coming back to them with enough experience and enough humility to actually do them justice. There is a connection here to the show's own origin story that most people miss. J.G. Quintel went to art school. Quintel studied animation at Cal Arts. Quintel is a person who pursued art and succeeded at it, eventually, after years of apprenticeship and revision work and creative directing for other people's shows. And Mordecai is a person who pursued art and dropped out. The creator and the character share a starting point but take different paths. Quintel kept going, Mordecai stopped. And now, in the finale's time skip, Mordecai goes back. He becomes the artist that Quintel became. He closes the gap between the creator and the character. And that is not just a narrative choice. It is an autobiographical one. Quintel is telling you, through Mordecai, that the thing you gave up on is not gone, that the art you abandoned when you were too young to know what you were abandoning still exists inside you, waiting, that you can go back, that it is not too late, that 20 years of detours do not erase the talent that was there at the beginning. Mordecai becomes an artist at 40, not at 20, and the version of art he makes at 40 is informed by everything he lived through at 20. The heartbreak, the failure, the loss, the watching his friend fly into the sun, all of it goes into the work, all of it becomes meaning. That is Mordecai's ending, not a destination, a return, a circle that closes, 25 years later, in a gallery where a man who used to be too scared to commit to anything finally commits to the thing that scared him most, himself. And there is a version of Mordecai that never gets there. That is important to acknowledge. There is a version of Mordecai who stays at the park forever, who never leaves, who keeps mowing lawns and playing video games and going to the coffee shop and orbiting the same routines until the routines become a cage. That version is not hypothetical. It is the version the show depicted for most of its run. The Mordecai who is comfortable enough to stay and restless enough to be miserable about staying, but not brave enough to leave. The show is honest about how close Mordecai came to that version. How easy it would have been for him to never change, to let the park become his entire world, not because it fulfilled him, but because leaving was harder than staying. Most people do not change because change is necessary. They change because something happens that makes staying the same more painful than the change itself. For Mordecai, that something was everything. Margaret leaving, CJ leaving, Pops dying, the park going to space, the universe resetting, the full weight of every loss and every failure, and every moment of cowardice, accumulating, until the only choice left was to become someone else, or collapse under the weight of who he had been. He chose to become someone else. He chose art. He chose Steph. He chose a life he could not have imagined at 23, built from the ruins of all the lives he tried and failed to build before. And the 25-year time skip does not show you the struggle. It does not show you the years of learning to paint again, the rejections from galleries, the nights of doubt, the slow process of rebuilding confidence from the ground up. It just shows you the result. A man at peace. A man surrounded by children who look like him. A man who found what he was looking for. The show trusts you to fill in the gaps. It trusts you to understand that the distance between the Mordecai of Season 1 and the Mordecai of the time skip is measured not in years, but in pain. In the specific, necessary, unavoidable pain of becoming a person. The show does not need to show you that pain because you have already watched it. You have been watching it for 8 seasons. The time skip is not the story. The story is everything that came before. But Mordecai's arc does not exist in isolation. There is someone who walked beside him for every step of it, someone whose growth is quieter, less dramatic, easier to miss, and in many ways more radical. To understand what regular show is really saying about growing up, you have to look at the person who had the furthest to go. You have to look at Rigby. There is a scene in the first season of regular show that tells you everything you need to know about Rigby. It is small, it is played for laughs, and it is devastating if you pay attention. Rigby is trying to do something simple, some basic task that his job requires, and he fails. Not in a spectacular way, in an ordinary way. The way a person fails when they genuinely do not have the skills or the discipline or the self-belief to do what is being asked of them. And instead of trying again, instead of asking for help, he turns the failure into a joke. He deflects. He moves on. He makes sure nobody, including himself, takes the failure seriously enough to feel the weight of it. That is Rigby's survival strategy for the first half of the series. Turn everything into a bit. Make it funny. If nothing matters, then nothing can hurt you. If you never try, you never have to face the specific, personal terror of trying and not being good enough. And the show is patient with this. It does not rush to fix Rigby. It does not give him a single episode of transformation where he learns to believe in himself and suddenly becomes competent. It lets him be a mess, for seasons. It lets him dodge responsibility and blame Mordecai and cut corners and lie about things that do not need lying about. It lets him be the person that a lot of people in their early 20s actually are. Not evil, not hopeless, just stuck. Circling the same patterns because the alternative, actually changing, is more frightening than the stuckness. There is a scene early in the series, Death Punchies, Season 1, Episode 4, which aired on September 27, 2010, that crystallizes this dynamic perfectly. Mordecai and Rigby play a game called Punchies. The rules are simple. You take turns punching each other. The person who gives up first loses. Rigby always loses, every single time. And the show plays this for comedy, but the subtext is not funny at all. Rigby is in a friendship where he physically cannot win, where the game is rigged by biology, by size, by the simple fact that Mordecai is bigger and stronger and more capable. And instead of refusing to play, instead of walking away from a game that is designed for him to lose, Rigby cheats. He steals instructions from something called Death Kwando to learn a devastating punching move that will finally let him beat Mordecai. That is Rigby's entire psychology in one episode. He cannot win fairly. He knows he cannot win fairly, but he cannot stop competing. He cannot stop measuring himself against the person next to him and coming up short. So he cuts corners. He finds shortcuts. He does the thing that feels like winning without actually being winning. And the show understands that this is not laziness. It is desperation. It is the behavior of someone who has decided, on a level so deep it is practically unconscious, that legitimate effort will never be enough, that the only way to close the gap is to cheat it. Regular Show the movie, which premiered on August 14, 2015, and aired on Cartoon Network on November 25, 2015, takes this dynamic to its most painful extreme. The film reveals a secret that Rigby has been carrying since high school. He fabricated a college acceptance letter, not his own, Mordecai's. The reason Mordecai went to college, the reason Mordecai ended up at art school instead of staying home, the reason Mordecai's entire life trajectory took the shape it did, is because Rigby forged a letter and made Mordecai believe he had been accepted. The truth is more complicated and more painful than simple sabotage. Rigby did it because he was terrified of losing his best friend, terrified that Mordecai would leave and never come back, terrified that without Mordecai, he would be alone with the full weight of his own inadequacy, with no one to measure himself against and no one to blame for his failures. That revelation cracks the friendship open. It forces both of them to confront the power imbalance that has been sitting underneath their dynamic since the very first episode. Mordecai dropped out of art school. He has spent years working a dead-end job at a park instead of pursuing his actual talent. And the reason, the hidden, buried, never-spoken reason, is Rigby. Rigby's fear, Rigby's manipulation, Rigby's inability to let his best friend succeed because success would mean separation. The movie resolves this. They reconcile. The friendship survives. But it survives changed. And the change carries forward into the final seasons of the show, into Rigby's graduation, into his relationship with Eileen, into the specific kind of maturity he displays in Season 8 that would have been unthinkable in Season 1, because Rigby had to face the worst thing he ever did. He had to stand in front of the person he hurt the most and say, "I did this. This was me." And the fact that the friendship survived that confession, that Mordecai chose to forgive rather than abandon, is what finally gives Rigby permission to stop hating himself. Not all at once, not in a single dramatic scene, but slowly, over the remaining seasons, like ice melting. The first real crack in Rigby's armor comes not from the park, but from his family. Specifically, from his younger brother Don. The episode is called Dawn, Season 1, Episode 10. It aired on November 8, 2010, and it introduces a dynamic that the show will return to, quietly, for years. Dawn is everything Rigby is not. Taller, more successful, more socially confident. An accountant, of all things, which in the context of a show about slackers, is practically a superpower. When Dawn shows up at the park to help with a financial crisis, everyone loves him. Mordecai loves him. Benson loves him. The entire park staff responds to Dawn with the warmth and respect that Rigby has never once received from them. And Rigby is furious. Not at Dawn, exactly. At the gap. At the distance between who his brother is and who he is. At the fact that his younger brother figured out how to be a functional person and he did not. The episode plays this as sibling rivalry. And on the surface, that is exactly what it is. But underneath, it is something much more painful. It is a person confronting the evidence that their strategy, the deflection and the jokes and the refusal to try, has not actually protected them from anything. It has just made the gap wider. They reconcile by the end of the episode. Because this is Season 1, and the show is still figuring out how dark it wants to go. But the wound that the episode exposes, the wound of feeling inadequate next to someone who should be your peer, never fully heals. It just goes underground. And it surfaces again and again throughout the series. In Rigby's resentment, in his defensiveness, in the way he responds to any situation where he might be measured against someone else. The thing that finally begins to change Rigby is not a grand realization. It is a person. Eileen. Eileen is a mole who works at the coffee shop alongside Margaret. She is quiet, smart, organized, and genuinely interested in Rigby from the very first time they interact. And Rigby's initial response to her interest is dismissal. Not cruelty exactly, but the kind of casual disregard that comes from a person who does not believe they deserve attention and therefore does not know what to do when they receive it. The show does not rush their relationship. It unfolds across seasons with a patience that mirrors the Mordecai and Margaret arc but achieves something very different. Because Mordecai's problem was that he could not commit. Rigby's problem is that he does not believe he is worth committing to. Eileen's steady, unflashy presence in his life is not just a romance. It is evidence. Evidence that contradicts the story Rigby tells himself about who he is. There is an episode called Eileen Flatscreen, Season 6, Episode 7, which aired on November 13, 2014. The plot is simple. Rigby decides to surprise Eileen by setting up her new television while she is out. That is it. That is the whole episode. A man doing something thoughtful for a person he cares about. And the fact that regular show treats this as a milestone. The fact that the show recognizes that for Rigby, an act of quiet, unglamorous consideration is a seismic shift, tells you everything about how well the show understands its characters. Rigby has spent years being the person who takes, who shortcuts, who lets other people do the work. And now he is voluntarily choosing to do something kind, with no audience and no reward, just because it will make someone he loves happy. That is not a small thing. That is the whole show in miniature. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the real turning point for Rigby, the moment where the show draws a line in the sand and says this character is different now and he is never going back, is Rigby's Graduation Day Special, Season 7, Episode 36. It aired on June 30th, 2016, and it is one of the most emotionally complex episodes regular show ever produced. Rigby never finished high school. That is a fact the show establishes early and returns to occasionally, always with a light touch, never making it the center of a very special episode or a dramatic confession. It is just there. A detail about Rigby that explains a lot about his insecurity without the show ever needing to spell it out. He is the only park employee without a diploma. He is the only one who literally did not finish what he started. And the specific kind of shame that comes from that, the quiet, persistent knowledge that you gave up on the most basic benchmark of adulthood, has been sitting in the background of Rigby's character for 7 seasons. The graduation episode does not treat getting the diploma as a simple victory. It treats it as a reckoning. Rigby has to write a speech that will be broadcast on television, a speech that requires him to stand up in front of people and say something true about who he is and where he has been. And the writing of that speech forces Rigby to confront everything he has been avoiding. The failure, the wasted years, the distance between the person he could have been and the person he became. There is a moment in the episode where Rigby sits with the blank page. The speech is not writing itself. The words are not coming. And the show holds on that image, a raccoon staring at a piece of paper, and it does not play it for comedy. It plays it straight, because this is the moment. This is the threshold. On one side of the blank page is the person Rigby has been for 7 seasons. On the other side is the person he is becoming, and the gap between them is exactly the width of a speech he does not know how to write. What does a dropout say at his own graduation? What does a person who quit say to a room full of people about the act of finishing? Rigby has no framework for this. He has never been the person who finishes things. He has been the person who starts things and abandons them, who dreams things and drops them, who wants things and lets them go, because the wanting was easier than the having. And now he has to stand up and speak about an experience he barely understands, the experience of seeing something through, in front of an audience that includes the people who watched him fail to see anything through for the entirety of his adult life. He does it. He writes the speech. He gives it. He graduates. And the show does not play it as a triumphant montage or a fist-pumping moment of victory. It plays it as something quieter and more real than that. A man finishing something he started a long time ago. Not because it changes his life in any practical way, but because finishing it means he is no longer the person who could not finish things. And that matters. That matters more than any degree or any career or any external validation. It matters because it is a promise Rigby makes to himself. I am not that person anymore. In the series finale, in the 25-year time skip, we see what Rigby's life becomes. He marries Eileen. They have 2 daughters. And there is a shot of Rigby at home, playing video games with his kids. And it is exactly the kind of life that the Season 1 version of Rigby would have said he wanted. Hanging out, playing games, no responsibilities, no pressure. But it is completely different. Because the Season 1 version of Rigby wanted that life as an escape. He wanted the absence of demands because demands terrified him. The Season 8 version of Rigby has that life as a choice. He has proven he can do hard things. He finished high school. He survived a cosmic war. He watched his friends sacrifice himself. And now he is choosing comfort not out of fear, but out of earned contentment. He is choosing games and laughter, and afternoons with his children, because he knows what the alternative looks like, and he has decided that this quiet, small, unremarkable life is enough. The show is telling you something profound with Rigby's ending. It is telling you that growing up does not mean becoming impressive. It does not mean getting a prestigious job or achieving something the world recognizes. It means becoming capable of choosing your life instead of hiding in it. It means knowing the difference between laziness and peace. Rigby at 23 and Rigby at 48 look almost identical from the outside. Both are hanging out. Both are playing games. But the interior is completely different. One is running away. The other is home. And that is Rigby's ending. Not a transformation into someone unrecognizable. A transformation into himself. The real version. The one who was always there underneath the jokes and the deflection and the fear. The one who just needed time, and Eileen, and a diploma, and a cosmic war, and a friend who flew into the sun. The usual things. Rigby and Mordecai walked into the show together. They walk out of it separately. In the 25-year time skip, they live different lives in different places. Mordecai is in the art world. Rigby is in the suburbs. They are not roommates anymore. They are not co-workers. They are not the two guys who hang out at the park and avoid their responsibilities together. They are men in their late 40s, with families and careers, and the specific kind of tiredness that comes from building a life. But they come back. 25 years later, they come back to the park for the reunion, and they stand together in front of Pops' statue. And the show does not need them to say anything. It does not need a speech about friendship or a callback to a running joke. It just needs them standing there. Two men who grew up together, who grew apart the way adults do, who came back to the place where it all started and found each other still there. That is not a small thing. That is the whole show. But before we move on from these two, there is something about their friendship that deserves its own examination, because the friendship between Mordecai and Rigby is not just a feature of regular show. It is the show. It is the engine, the framework, the gravitational center around which everything else orbits. And the way the show treats that friendship, the honesty with which it depicts both the beauty and the ugliness of a lifelong bond between two very different people, is one of the most nuanced portrayals of male friendship in the history of American animation. Think about what the show actually depicts across 8 seasons. Two men who love each other and are terrible for each other. Two men who bring out the best and the worst in each other, sometimes in the same episode, sometimes in the same scene. Mordecai enables Rigby's laziness by never holding him accountable. Rigby undermines Mordecai's ambition by making comfort seem more attractive than effort. They play video games when they should be working. They start arguments they cannot finish. They get each other into situations that are literally life-threatening. And they do it because the alternative, doing things alone, is more frightening than any cosmic entity. There is a scene in A Bunch of Baby Ducks, Season 2, Episode 23, which aired on June 6, 2011, that captures something essential about Rigby's capacity for connection. Baby ducks become attached to him. They follow him around. They imitate his behavior. They look at him with a devotion that is absurd and sincere, the way ducks look at the first moving object they see after hatching. And Rigby responds to this attention not with annoyance, but with something approaching tenderness. He takes care of them. He protects them. He does, for these tiny, helpless creatures, what he cannot yet do for himself. He shows up. The ducks are a mirror. They show what Rigby looks like when he is needed by something smaller and more vulnerable than himself. They show the version of Rigby that exists beneath the deflection and the laziness. The version that Eileen eventually brings to the surface permanently. The version that fatherhood completes. Rigby, who cannot take care of himself, is somehow capable of taking care of others. That is not a contradiction. That is human. Some people find their best selves not through self-improvement, but through being responsible for something that depends on them. The friendship between Mordecai and Rigby is complicated in ways that fiction rarely explores. Most buddy comedies treat friendship as a fixed quantity. The friends are loyal. The friends have each other's backs. The friends fight occasionally, but always reconcile because the friendship is more important than the conflict. Regular Show does something different. It treats friendship as a living thing that changes shape over time. That gets damaged. That repairs imperfectly. That carries scar tissue from old wounds that never quite healed. The college letter reveal in the movie is the most dramatic example, but there are smaller ones throughout the series. Moments where Mordecai talks down to Rigby. Moments where Rigby sabotages Mordecai's opportunities. Moments where they hurt each other not because they are cruel, but because they are close. And closeness gives you access to the places where damage lands hardest. And the show never fixes this. It does not give them a moment where the power imbalance disappears or the resentment fully dissolves. It gives them something better. It gives them time. Enough time to outgrow the patterns without needing to address them directly. Enough time for the friction to smooth out not through confrontation, but through the slow, invisible process of two people growing up and needing each other less desperately. The friendship at 23 is codependent and volatile. The friendship at 48 is warm and distant, and real in a way that codependency can never be. That is what the reunion scene says. Not that they are the same friends they were. They are not. They are different friends. Better friends. Friends who no longer need each other every day and who are, for that exact reason, capable of appreciating each other more fully when they do meet. The distance is the proof that they grew up. The return is the proof that the friendship survived the growing. There is another episode that illuminates the show's understanding of friendship. Excellent, Season 3, Episode 17, which aired on February 27, 2012. This is the episode that won Regular Show its Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Short-Format Animated Program. And the reason it won, the reason it resonated, is not the comedy or the animation or the absurd premise, though all of those things are excellent. It is the emotional core. Rigby attempts a food challenge at a restaurant, a massive omelet. The prize for finishing it is a commemorative trucker hat. A trucker hat. The stakes could not be lower. And because Rigby has an egg allergy, the attempt puts him in a coma. Mordecai does not shrug and move on. He does not accept the situation. He walks into the restaurant and he takes on the challenge himself. Not because the hat matters, not because the omelet matters, because Rigby started something and could not finish it, and Mordecai is going to finish it for him. Because that is what they do. That is what they have always done. One of them falls and the other one picks up the challenge and carries it forward. Not out of obligation, out of love so deep and so inarticulate that the only way to express it is through action. Through eating a massive omelet for a trucker hat while your best friend lies in a hospital bed. The show makes this work because it never tells you it is emotional. It just is. The comedy and the sincerity occupy the same space. The absurdity of the premise and the depth of the feeling do not cancel each other out. They amplify each other, because that is how friendship works. The grand gestures are never grand. They are stupid. They are eating an omelet you do not want to eat for a hat your friend will never wear. They are setting up a television while someone is out. They are standing in front of a statue 25 years later and not needing to say anything because everything has already been said across 8 seasons through 1,000 small, ridiculous, beautiful acts of showing up. Now, there is another character whose ending might be the most underrated resolution in the entire series. A character whose journey from rage to peace is so gradual, so embedded in the fabric of the show, that most people did not even notice it was happening until it was over. We need to talk about Benson. Benson Dunwoody is a gumball machine. That sentence, all by itself, contains the entire tonal range of Regular Show. He is a gumball machine. He is also a park manager with a volcanic temper, a failed music career, a string of romantic disappointments, and a deep, abiding need to be taken seriously by people who absolutely refuse to take him seriously. He is absurd, and he is real, and the show never asks you to choose between those two things. For most of the series, Benson exists in a state of perpetual frustration. Mordecai and Rigby do not do their jobs. They destroy park property. They unleash supernatural catastrophes on a weekly basis. And Benson yells. He yells a lot. His yelling is one of the show's most reliable comedy engines. The gumball machine turning red and screaming threats about firing people who will never actually be fired. It is funny, it is repetitive, and it is, if you look at it from the right angle, one of the saddest things in the show. Because Benson is not just angry, he is powerless. He is a middle manager in a world that does not respect middle management. He has authority in theory and none in practice. He can threaten to fire Mordecai and Rigby, but he never does, partly because the show needs them there, but also because, underneath the rage, Benson cares about these people. They are the closest thing he has to a family, and that is the trap. You cannot enforce discipline on the people you love. You cannot maintain professional distance from the people you eat lunch with every day and fight cosmic entities alongside every other week. You just get angry, and the anger does not change anything. It just becomes who you are. The episode that reveals the most about Benson's interior life is Think Positive, Season 3. It aired on January 30th, 2012. The premise is simple. Pops, who cannot stand conflict, forbids Benson from yelling at Mordecai and Rigby. Benson has to manage them without raising his voice. And the show plays this as a pressure cooker. Benson bottles up his rage and it builds, and it builds, and it builds, until it finally explodes in a catastrophic outburst that is played for laughs but is also, unmistakably, a portrait of a person who has no healthy outlet for his emotions. There is another Benson episode that deserves attention. Benson Be Gone, Season 2, Episode 11, which aired on February 28, 2011. A demon disguised as a park manager replaces the demoted Benson, and the episode does something fascinating with the power dynamic. Benson, stripped of his title, stripped of the one thing that gives him a sense of identity in the park hierarchy, has to fight to get it back. Not because the job is good, not because the pay is excellent, or the hours are reasonable, or the work is fulfilling, because it is his, because without it, he does not know who he is. That is the trap the show builds around Benson across 8 seasons. His job is the source of his frustration and the foundation of his identity. He cannot leave it, because leaving it would mean admitting that the thing he has devoted his life to was not worth the devotion. And he cannot fix it because fixing it would require the other characters to change, and they are not ready to change. Not yet. Not until the show is ready for them to change. So Benson stays. He yells. He threatens. He turns red and screams, and then, the next morning, he is back at the morning meeting, clipboard in hand, assigning tasks that he knows will not get done, running a park that he knows will end up in chaos, managing people who he knows will ignore every word he says. And he does it because the alternative is worse. The alternative is silence. The alternative is standing in an empty park with no clipboard and no meeting and no one to yell at, and realizing that the noise was the only thing keeping the quiet from swallowing him whole. The show is not being subtle about what it is doing here. Benson's anger is not a character quirk. It is a coping mechanism. It is what happens when a person who cares deeply about doing a good job is surrounded by people who do not care at all, and the only tool he has is volume. Take away the volume and there is nothing left but the caring, which is raw and vulnerable and terrifying for a person who has built his entire identity around being the tough one, the strict one, the one who keeps things together. But there is another side to Benson that the show reveals slowly, across multiple seasons, through a detail that seems like a throwaway joke, but is actually one of the most emotionally loaded threads in the entire series. Benson plays drums. Not just plays drums, was a drummer, a real one, with talent and ambition and the specific kind of passion that a person only has for the thing they were meant to do. The episode that digs deepest into this is 150-Piece Kit, Season 4. It aired on October 29, 2012. And it is an episode about a gumball machine trying to prove that he can still play a drum solo, and it is also an episode about a man trying to prove that the best part of his life is not behind him. The solo is enormous, sprawling, technically demanding in ways that the show takes completely seriously. Composer John Enroth wrote and performed the solo for the episode, and the show gives it real time, real space, real weight. Benson sits behind a 150-piece drum kit and he plays. And while he plays, you see something you almost never see in regular show. You see Benson happy, not relieved, not satisfied. Happy. The kind of happiness that only comes from doing the thing you were put on this earth to do. And then the episode ends, and Benson goes back to being a park manager. Back to the yelling. Back to the frustration. Back to the life he settled for when the life he wanted did not work out. That is the gap. That is where the analysis lives. Between the Benson who plays drums and the Benson who manages a park. Between the person he is when he is doing what he loves and the person he is the other 23 hours of the day. The show never reconciles those two Bensons. It just lets them coexist, the way they coexist in real people. The dream and the reality. The thing you wanted and the thing you got. But here is what happens to Benson at the end. And this is the part that sneaks up on you. In season 7, Benson meets a woman named Pam. The episode is Pam I Am, which aired on June 2nd, 2016. She is a dome worker, a scientist, someone who operates in a completely different world from the park, and their relationship does not get the dramatic treatment that Mordecai's romances received. It unfolds quietly, in the background, without fanfare or crisis or love triangles. They just find each other. Two adults who are past the age of grand romantic gestures, who meet and like each other and decide to be together. In the 25-year time skip, Benson has married Pam. He is still at the park. He is still the manager. But something fundamental has changed. He is calm. He is happy. He is, according to every visual cue the show provides, a person who has found peace. Not because his circumstances changed dramatically. He is still doing the same job, in the same place, with the same responsibilities. What changed is internal. The rage that defined him for 8 seasons has settled. Not disappeared, settled, like sediment in a glass of water. The water is still the same water, but you can see through it now. The show does not explain this transformation. It does not give you a single moment where Benson has a breakthrough or an epiphany or a healing conversation. It just shows you the result. A man who used to scream every day, standing in the park 25 years later, not screaming. And the simplicity of that image, the plain quiet of a person who finally found a way to stop being angry, is one of the most moving things regular show ever offered. Because here is what the show understands about anger. It is not a personality trait. It is a response to pain. And the pain, for Benson, was always loneliness. Not the absence of people, the absence of being seen. He had employees who ignored him. He had a boss, Mr. Maellard, who barely acknowledged his existence. He had a talent that nobody cared about, and a job that nobody respected. And the anger was the only proof he had that he was still in the room. If nobody listens to you, at least they hear you when you scream. Pam listens. The show does not make a big deal out of this, because it does not need to. That is the whole point. Benson's ending is not dramatic. It is domestic. It is a person who spent years screaming into the void finally finding someone who stands in front of him and says, "I hear you. You do not need to yell." That is Benson's ending. Not a career change. Not a return to drumming. Not a dramatic redemption arc. Just peace. Just the slow, hard-won, unglamorous peace of a person who finally has enough love in his life that the anger does not have anywhere left to go. And if that does not move you, I do not know what will. There is something else the show does with Benson that rarely gets discussed. It makes him right. For 8 seasons, the audience is trained to see Benson as the obstacle. He is the boss who does not want Mordecai and Rigby to have fun. He is the authority figure whose rules exist to be broken. He is the straight man in a comedy, which means the comedy depends on his frustration. The audience laughs at Benson because his rage is impotent. He yells and nothing changes. He threatens and nobody listens. He is the man shaking his fist at a cloud, and the cloud keeps raining. But look at what he is actually yelling about. He is yelling because his employees do not do their jobs. He is yelling because the park is being destroyed on a weekly basis. He is yelling because every task he assigns, no matter how simple, somehow escalates into a supernatural catastrophe that costs thousands of dollars in property damage. He is not wrong. He has never been wrong. The show just frames his correctness as comedy because the show is told from the perspective of the people causing the problems. Reframe it. Remove the comedy. Describe what Benson's life actually looks like. A man manages a public park. His 2 primary employees refuse to work. They play video games during their shifts. They ignore direct instructions. They have caused, conservatively, millions of dollars in damage to public property. They have endangered the lives of every person in the surrounding area on multiple occasions. They have triggered interdimensional incidents, summoned demonic entities, and once launched the entire park into space. And this man, this manager, continues to show up every single day, assigns the same tasks, and tries to hold the operation together. That is not the behavior of an angry person. That is the behavior of someone who cares so much about something that the caring has become indistinguishable from pain. Benson cares about the park. He cares about doing a good job. He cares about the idea that work matters, that showing up matters, that doing the thing you are paid to do is a form of integrity. And he lives in a world that mocks that belief every single day. The show's gift to Benson at the end is not revenge or vindication. It is validation. By the finale, Mordecai and Rigby have grown up enough to recognize what Benson was doing all those years, not oppressing them, protecting the park, protecting the fragile structure that gave all of them a place to belong. And the 25-year time skip shows Benson still there, still managing, but now with the calm satisfaction of a person whose work finally paid off. The park survived, the park endures. And Benson, who spent 8 seasons holding it together with nothing but a clipboard and a scream, gets to see it stand. There is a specific kind of heroism in middle management. It is not glamorous. Nobody writes songs about it. Nobody builds statues to the person who filed the permits on time. But Benson's heroism is real. He kept the lights on. He made the schedule. He showed up when nobody else would. And in the end, the park he managed is the place where everyone comes back to. The reunion happens at the park. The statues stand in the park. The memories live in the park. And the park exists because Benson made sure it did. Day after day, year after year, for 25 years and counting. That is a different kind of ending than Pops' sacrifice, or Mordecai's artistic redemption, or Rigby's domestic peace. It is an ending about the quiet, invisible work that holds the world together. The work that nobody thanks you for because they never see it. The work that only becomes visible in its absence, when the schedule falls apart and the permits expire and the lights go out and everyone suddenly realizes that someone was keeping all of this running and that someone is gone. Benson never leaves. Benson never stops. Benson's ending is the work itself. The work, and Pam beside him, and the knowledge that the yelling finally stopped because there was nothing left to yell about. Everything turned out okay, against all odds. Despite everything. Okay, before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, there is a character in regular show whose ending is not really an ending at all, because for this character, endings do not exist. Not in the way they exist for everyone else. Not in the way they exist for you or me or anyone who measures their life in decades rather than centuries. We need to talk about Skips. Skips is an immortal Yeti who works as the park's handyman. He can fix anything. He knows everything. He has been alive for longer than anyone can comprehend, and he moves through the world with a calm, steady competence that makes him the most reliable character in the entire show. When things go wrong, and they always go wrong, Skips is the one who knows what to do. He has seen it before. He has dealt with it before. He will deal with it again. And he skips, not walks. Skips. Everywhere he goes, he skips. It is a visual joke that the show commits to absolutely, never breaking the bit, never having Skips walk normally, even in the most dramatic or emotional scenes. He skips through cosmic battles. He skips through funerals. He skips through every conceivable human experience with this one, strange, unexplained quirk. Until the show explains it. And then it is not a quirk anymore. It is a scar. The show plants the seeds of this backstory early, though you would not know it on a first viewing. In Free Cake, Season 1, Episode 5, which aired on October 4, 2010, Mordecai and Rigby decide to throw Skips a surprise birthday party. Their motivation is not selfless. They want cake. They crave it with the single-minded desperation that defines their relationship to food throughout the series. But the birthday party they plan disrupts something far more important than they realize. It disrupts Skip's annual ritual. Every year, on his birthday, Skips performs a ceremony for the Guardians of Eternal Youth, a group of mystical, baby-like cosmic beings who maintain his immortality. The ritual is not optional. It is the mechanism that keeps him alive. Skip it, and the immortality fails. Skip it, and Skips dies. Not slowly, not gracefully, just dies. After centuries of life, one missed ritual is all it takes. Mordecai and Rigby's interference nearly kills him. They do not know. They do not understand what they are messing with. They just want cake. And the gap between the mundane desire, cake, and the cosmic consequence, death, immortality, the end of an unimaginably long life, is the gap where all of regular show's best storytelling happens. The characters live on the surface. The meaning lives underneath. And Skips, more than anyone, exists in that space, between what is visible and what is buried. The full revelation comes in Skips's story, Season 5, Episode 22. It aired on April 14th, 2014, and it changes everything about this character. Skips was not always Skips. His name was Walks, just Walks, a normal name for a normal person living a normal life in what appears to be a past era, somewhere in the early 20th century or perhaps even earlier, and Walks falls in love. Her name is Mona. The show gives their love story real time, real specificity, real tenderness. They meet. They grow close. They do the things that people in love do. They build a life together that feels specific and earned and true. And then Mona dies. The show does not dramatize her death with elaborate spectacle. It happens, the way death happens. One day she is there, and the next day she is not. And the person left behind has to figure out how to exist in a world that no longer contains the person who made existence worthwhile. After Mona's death, the Guardians of Eternal Youth, a group of cosmic beings who appear throughout the series, offer Walks a deal. Immortality. He will live forever. He will protect the Earth. He will never age, never weaken, never die. And in exchange, he will never see Mona again. Not in this life or any other. The immortality is total. There is no afterlife waiting for him. There is no reunion. There is just time. An infinite amount of it, stretching out ahead of him like an ocean with no shore. Walks accepts. He changes his name to Skips, and he starts skipping instead of walking. Stop there. Sit with that for a moment. A man loses the woman he loves. He is offered immortality. He could walk through eternity in any way he chooses. He could stomp, or stride, or march, or crawl. He could move through the world in any manner that suits the weight of what he carries. And he chooses to skip. He chooses the thing that is most associated with joy, with childhood, with lightness. He takes the heaviest possible emotion, grief that will literally never end, and he wraps it in the lightest possible gesture. That is not avoidance. That is not denial. That is the most sophisticated emotional response any character in regular show demonstrates. Skips does not run from his grief. He carries it. He carries it in every step, in every skip, in every moment of movement that is simultaneously an expression of loss and a refusal to let that loss define how he moves through the world. He is mourning and celebrating at the same time. Every skip is a funeral and a birthday, an ending and a continuation, a goodbye and a hello. Because he and Mona used to skip together. It was their thing, their private, silly, intimate thing. And now it is the only piece of her he can carry forward into an eternity without her. Think about that. Every single time you have seen Skip skip across the screen, every single episode, every single scene, what you were actually watching was a man performing an act of mourning so old and so deep that it has become indistinguishable from his identity. Skipping is not a character trait. It is a memorial, a continuous, unending memorial to a woman who died so long ago that nobody alive remembers her name. Nobody except Skips. Who will remember it forever? Because forever, for him, is not a metaphor. That is the plain statement. That is what the show is actually depicting when it shows you a cartoon Yeti hopping around a park. A man who lost the love of his life and chose to honor her memory with every single step he takes for the rest of time, which, in his case, is eternity. And that framing changes what his ending means. In the 25-year time skip, everyone else has moved on. Mordecai has a new career and a family. Rigby has a wife and children. Benson has found peace. Muscle Man has a house full of kids. High Five Ghost is touring the world. Everyone has left the park. Everyone has built a new life somewhere else. Except Skips. Skips is still there, at the park, doing the same job, in the same clothes, looking exactly the same as he did 25 years ago. Because 25 years, to Skips, is nothing. It is a breath. It is the blink of an eye in a life that has no end. Everyone around him ages and changes and grows and leaves and dies, and Skips remains, fixed, permanent, the one constant in a world defined by change. The show plays this without commentary. It does not add a sad musical cue when the camera finds Skips at the reunion. It does not give him a monologue about loneliness or permanence. It just shows him standing there, in the park, the same as always, while everyone else is 25 years older and different. And that silence is the loudest thing in the entire finale. Because here is what Skips' ending actually is. It is not an ending. That is the point. Everyone else gets a conclusion, a resolution, a final chapter that wraps up their story and gives the audience the comfort of knowing where they land. Skips does not get that. Skips cannot get that. His story does not end. It just continues, and continues, and continues. Long after everyone he knows is gone. Long after the park is demolished or renamed or forgotten. Long after the audience has moved on to other shows and other lives. Skips will still be there. Somewhere. Fixing something. Skipping. The show understands that immortality is not a gift. Not in the way fiction usually presents it. It is a sentence. It is the most profound possible isolation. The knowledge that every relationship you form is temporary by design. Everyone you love will leave you. Not because they choose to. Because they die. Because that is what mortals do. And you watch. And you remember. And you skip. And you keep going because that is the deal you made. And deals with cosmic entities do not have exit clauses. There is an episode called Skips vs. Technology, Season 3. It aired on February 6, 2012. The premise is comedic. Skips, who can fix anything mechanical or magical, is completely baffled by a computer error. He cannot figure it out. He needs help from someone younger, someone who grew up with technology he has never had to learn. And it is funny. It is genuinely funny. But it is also a portrait of what immortality actually looks like. Not all-knowing wisdom, not serene detachment, confusion, bewilderment. The constant, humbling experience of watching the world change into something you do not recognize, over and over, forever. Skips can fix a supernatural curse, but he cannot fix a computer. That is not just a joke. That is the lived experience of someone who has been alive too long. The world keeps moving, the tools keep changing, and you keep trying to keep up, knowing that whatever you learn today will be obsolete tomorrow, and you will have to learn the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, forever. That is not wisdom. That is exhaustion wearing wisdom's face. And yet Skips stays. He stays at the park. He stays with these people. He helps Mordecai and Rigby and Benson and Pops, knowing that they will grow old and leave and die, and he will still be here. He does not protect himself by withdrawing. He does not build walls. He opens himself up to the same loss, again and again, because the alternative, isolation, is worse than the grief. That is Skips' ending, not a resolution, a commitment, a man who chose immortality and chose, every single day, to spend that immortality loving people he knows he will outlive. That is not stoicism. That is not detachment. That is the bravest thing anyone in regular show does. Including Pops, because Pops' sacrifice was a single moment of courage. Skips' sacrifice is continuous. It never ends. It cannot end. And he still skips. After 25 years, after everyone has changed, he still skips. For Mona, for the memory of a woman who died centuries ago, for the promise that he made to himself, or to her, or to the ghost of what they had, that he would carry her with him forever. That is not a small thing. That is the most heartbreaking ending in the entire show. And the show has the grace to present it without a single word of explanation. There is one more thing about Skips that the show reveals through episodes scattered across its run. Skips is not just the handyman who fixes mechanical problems and supernatural curses. He is the institutional memory of the park. He is the person who knows where the bodies are buried, sometimes literally, because he was there when they were buried. He remembers every previous employee, every previous crisis, every previous version of the chaos that Mordecai and Rigby generate on a weekly basis. There is an episode, Over the Top, Season 2, Episode 21, which aired on May 23, 2011, where Skips accidentally kills Rigby. The show does not flinch from this. Rigby dies, and Skips, the person who has been alive for centuries, the person who has seen more death than any mortal mind could process, has to fix it. He challenges death himself, the actual personified concept of death, who is a recurring character in the show voiced by Julian Holloway, with a dry British accent, to an arm wrestling match. If Skips wins, Rigby comes back. If death wins, Rigby stays dead. The show plays this for comedy and also for horror, because the implication is staggering. Death is a person Skips knows. Death is someone Skips has dealt with before, has bargained with before, has probably watched take people Skips cared about, over and over, across centuries of living. And Skips sits down at the table with death and negotiates, the way you negotiate with a landlord or a mechanic, with exhaustion, with familiarity, with the specific weariness of someone who has done this so many times that it has become routine. Skips arm wrestles death to save Rigby's life. That sentence is absurd. It is also the distilled essence of everything Skips does. He fights the things that are too big for anyone else to fight. He does it without complaint. He does it because someone has to. And when it is over, he goes back to work. He fixes the next thing. He skips across the park to the next crisis. Because the crises never stop. The park never stops needing him. The world never stops breaking. And he never stops fixing it. That is the deal. That is what immortality costs. Not eternal youth or eternal wisdom. Eternal responsibility. The knowledge that you will never be done. That the work will never be finished. That the moment you fix one thing, another thing will break. And you will fix that too. And something else will break. And you will fix that too. Forever. Because forever is what you have, and forever is what you owe. Skips's ending is not an ending. It is a continuation. An infinite continuation. And the show respects him enough to present that, not as a superpower, but as a burden carried with grace. Now, we have talked about the characters who carry the heaviest emotional weight. We have talked about sacrifice, and loss, and the slow, difficult work of growing up. But regular show is not only about those things. It is also about something messier, and funnier, and more human. It is about finding the person who can stand you at your worst. It is about building a life with someone who knows exactly who you are, including the parts you wish they did not see, and choosing to stay anyway. Which brings us to Muscle Man and Starla. Muscle Man, whose real name is Mitch Sorenstein, is the park employee most likely to gross you out, offend you, and make you laugh against your will, often in the same sentence. He is green-skinned, overweight, aggressively crude, and in possession of a sense of humor that revolves almost entirely around "my mom" jokes. He is, by any conventional measure, the least romantic character in the entire show. And he has the best love story. That is the gap. That is where the show does its most interesting work with this character, between the surface, which is crude and loud and intentionally off-putting, and the interior, which is loyal and passionate, and capable of a depth of feeling that the show reveals in careful, measured doses. Starla is introduced in Muscle Woman, Season 2, Episode 14. It aired on April 4, 2011, and the show does something very deliberate with her introduction. She is drawn to be Muscle Man's exact counterpart, equally loud, equally crude, equally physical. The show is not subtle about this. It is matching them. It is saying, these two people found each other in a world that does not have a lot of room for people like them, and they fit. The episode is about Starla breaking up with Muscle Man, and the emotional devastation it causes him is played partly for laughs but is also, underneath the comedy, completely sincere. Muscle Man without Starla is a man without a center. He stops functioning. He cannot do his job. He cannot take care of himself. He collapses. And Mordecai and Rigby, who spend most of the series annoyed by Muscle Man, step in and do his work for him, because even they can see that what he is going through is real. That is the show's first signal that Muscle Man's feelings are not a joke. They are the most genuine thing about him. The bravado, the vulgarity, the relentless "my mom" jokes, all of that is armor. Underneath it, there is a person who loves with his entire being and who falls apart when that love is threatened. The show traces their relationship across multiple seasons with a consistency that most animated shows never bother with. Bald Spot, Season 4, Episode 6, October 29, 2012. Muscle Man tries to hide a bald spot before his anniversary with Starla. The Longest Weekend, Season 4, Episode 12, January 21, 2013. Starla challenges Muscle Man to go an entire weekend without any contact with her, to prove that their relationship can survive space. These episodes are comedic. They are also, without exception, episodes about a person who is terrified of losing the one thing that makes his life make sense. The proposal happens. The wedding happens, in Dumped at the Altar, Season 6, Episode 28, June 25, 2015. The same episode where Mordecai's relationship with CJ collapses, and the show does something brilliant with the parallel. In the same episode, one romance falls apart forever, and another one is consecrated. Mordecai fails. Muscle Man succeeds. And the contrast is not cruel. It is structural. It is the show saying, here is what commitment looks like when you actually commit. Here is what happens when you put the other person first, when you show up, when you do not let your own confusion and cowardice poison the thing you are building. Muscle Man is not smarter than Mordecai. He is not more emotionally mature. He is not a better person, but he is more certain. He knows what he wants. He knows who he wants it with. And that certainty, that refusal to waver, that willingness to be embarrassing and vulnerable and completely unguarded about how much he loves this woman, is the thing that saves him. Not from external threats, from himself, from the possibility of becoming the kind of person who never quite manages to hold on to anything. In the 25-year time skip, Muscle Man and Starla have a house full of children. More children than any other couple in the show. The man who started the series as a crude joke machine ends it as the show's most devoted family man. And the show does not present this as ironic. It presents it as inevitable. Of course Muscle Man has the biggest family. Of course he does. Because he is the character who feels the most, who loves the hardest, who has the least restraint when it comes to opening his heart to other people. His vulgarity and his tenderness come from the same place, an inability to hold anything back. And in the end, that inability is not a flaw. It is the thing that fills his house with people. There is something else about Muscle Man that the show reveals gradually, almost accidentally, through the accumulation of small moments across seasons. He is loyal in a way that goes beyond friendship. He is loyal in the way that a soldier is loyal, or a dog, or a person who has decided that these are his people and he will stand between them and anything that threatens them, no matter what. When the park goes to space, when the crew faces anti-pops and the cosmic battle that defines the finale, when everything escalates beyond what any of them signed up for, Muscle Man does not hesitate. He does not question. He does not weigh the risks or calculate the odds. He is there. Full commitment. No restraint. The same intensity he brings to my mom jokes, he brings to defending the people he loves. And the show does not draw attention to this. It does not give Muscle Man a heroic speech about sacrifice or loyalty. It just shows him doing it, being there, fighting. Not because he is brave, because leaving is not something he can conceive of. And when you look at his ending through that lens, the house full of children makes even more sense. Muscle Man is not just a family man. He is a builder of families. He takes the loyalty, the intensity, the overwhelming capacity for devotion that he showed toward Starla and toward the park crew, and he multiplies it. He creates a house where nobody leaves, where everybody belongs, where the door is always open and the table is always full, and the noise is constant, because silence is what happens when people are gone, and Muscle Man never wants anyone to be gone. His "my mom" jokes, the running gag that defines him in the popular imagination, are themselves a declaration of loyalty. He is always talking about his mother, always invoking her, always bringing her into conversations where she does not belong. And that is not randomness. That is a man who keeps the people he loves close by naming them, by making them present in every interaction, by refusing to let a conversation happen without reminding everyone that he comes from somewhere, that he belongs to someone, that there is a woman out there who made him, and he carries her with him everywhere, in every joke, in every interaction, in every ridiculous moment of a ridiculous life. That is Muscle Man's ending, not a transformation, a revelation. The show pulls back the curtain and shows you that the person you were laughing at was, the whole time, the person who understood love better than anyone else in the cast. Not love as romance, not love as grand gesture, love as daily practice, love as showing up, love as being exactly who you are, unreservedly, without apology, and finding someone who does not want you to be anyone else. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. High Five Ghost exists in a strange space within regular show's ensemble. He is always there. He is part of the crew. He goes on the adventures, fights the cosmic threats, participates in the supernatural chaos that defines daily life at the park. But the show does not give him the same depth of attention it gives to the other characters. For most of the series, he is present without being central, a supporting player in a cast of leads. And that, in itself, is worth examining. Because High Five Ghost's relative lack of focus is not a failure of the show. It is a mirror. It is regular show acknowledging that in every friend group, there is someone who is simply there. Not the leader, not the loudest voice, not the one whose problems become everyone's problems. Just a person who shows up, does the work, and goes home. A person whose story is quieter, because quieter is who they are. The episode that gives High Five Ghost his most significant solo spotlight is The Postcard, Season 5, Episode 17. It aired on February 10, 2014. The plot centers on High Five Ghost receiving a long-awaited postcard from a woman he met years ago. Her name is Celia. She is voiced by Zosia Mamet, and the postcard represents a possibility that High Five Ghost has been carrying around for a long time. The possibility that there is someone out there who thought about him, who remembered him, who wanted to reconnect. The episode is sweet and understated, and it gives High Five Ghost something the show has never quite given him before. A want, a desire that is specifically his, not shared with the group, not part of someone else's adventure. His own private hope, and the fact that the show waits until Season 5 to give him this, the fact that it takes that long for the quietest character to get his own emotional through line, mirrors the experience of quiet people in real life. You wait. You watch other people's dramas unfold. And eventually, if you are patient and lucky, your own story starts. In the 25-year time skip, High Five Ghost and Celia are together. They have a son, and they have become touring DJs based in Prague. That detail, the Prague detail, is the kind of specific, unexpected character note that regular show excels at. It is not generic happiness. It is this specific happiness, for this specific character. High Five Ghost, the ghostly presence who floated through 8 seasons without ever demanding the spotlight, ends up living the most adventurous, least conventional life of anyone in the cast. And there is something beautiful about that. The quiet one leaves. The quiet one sees the world. The quiet one builds a life that nobody expected, in a place nobody predicted, doing something that has nothing to do with the park or the town or the life that everyone assumed he would always live. High Five Ghost's ending is a reminder that the people you overlook are not blank. They are not empty. They are just waiting. And when they finally move, they move further than anyone else. That is High Five Ghost's ending. A departure. A life lived somewhere far away, with someone who saw him when nobody else was looking. The show gives it to him without fanfare, without a dramatic send-off, without even a particularly emotional goodbye. It just shows you the result. A ghost in Prague, a family, a DJ booth, a life. And maybe that is the most honest kind of ending there is, not the one you build up to, the one you quietly slip into when nobody is watching. There is a detail about High Five Ghost that the show never explicitly addresses, but that sits underneath his character like a foundation. He is a ghost. He has already died. Whatever High Five Ghost was before, whatever life he lived, whatever body he inhabited, it ended. He is post-death. He is the aftermath of a story that the show never tells you. And yet he is the most alive character in the show. Not in the manic, attention-seeking way that Muscle Man is alive. In the quiet, steady, present way. High Five Ghost shows up. He does his work. He hangs out with his friends. He falls in love. He builds a career. He becomes a father. He does all the things that living people do, and he does them despite the fact, or maybe because of the fact, that he has already passed through the thing that everyone else fears most. That is a profound piece of character design, whether the show intended it or not. High Five Ghost is the proof that ending is not the end, that what comes after death, in his case literally, can be full and rich and meaningful, that you do not need a body to love someone. You do not need a heartbeat to build a life. You just need to show up, and keep showing up, and find the person who sees you, really sees you, and hold on to them. High Five Ghost's journey from Prague to the reunion at the park is a journey that only makes sense if you understand what he represents. He is the character who has already lost everything and built it all back from nothing. His entire existence is a second chance, and he used it well. He used it quietly, without fanfare, without demanding recognition, but he used it. That is all anyone can do with a second chance. Use it. Do not waste it on regret, or fear, or the memory of what you lost. Use it. Build something. Love someone. Go to Prague. Become a DJ. Have a son. Come home. Now. There is a character in regular show whose ending is not really an ending in the traditional sense. It is more of a disappearance, a sudden, jarring exit from the story that leaves a gap shaped exactly like a person, and the show never fills it in. This character's story is not about growth or love or sacrifice. It is about secrets, about the gap between who you present yourself as and who you actually are, and about what happens when that gap collapses. We need to talk about Thomas. Thomas arrives at the park as an intern, a goat, mild, unremarkable, the kind of person who blends into the background so naturally that you almost forget he is there. And for several seasons, that is exactly what he does. He blends. He does his work. He exists at the margins of the group, never quite central, never quite absent, occupying the specific social space of the new guy who is still figuring out where he fits. And then the show detonates him. The Real Thomas, Season 6, Episode 8. It aired on November 20th, 2014, and it is one of the most structurally audacious episodes regular show ever produced, because it takes a character the audience has grown comfortable ignoring and reveals that he was never who they thought he was. Thomas is a Russian spy. His real name is Nikolai. He was planted at the park as part of an espionage operation, and his mild, forgettable persona was not a personality. It was a cover. Every interaction the audience watched, every moment of Thomas blending into the background, was not the behavior of a shy person. It was the behavior of a trained operative doing exactly what he was designed to do, being invisible. The show handles the reveal with surprising weight. Rigby is the first to suspect something, and the episode that follows is not played entirely for laughs. There is genuine tension, genuine betrayal. The park crew trusted Thomas, and that trust was built on a lie. Not a white lie, not an exaggeration, a fundamental falsehood about who he was and why he was there. But here is where the show does something unexpected. Thomas, Nikolai, whatever name you want to use, does not remain a villain. When the moment comes, when his mission and his friendships come into direct conflict, he chooses his friends. He betrays Russia to save the park. He makes the choice that real people make when they have been pretending so long that the pretense becomes the truth. His cover identity, the quiet, agreeable intern who just wanted to belong, was not entirely fake. It was the person he became by pretending to be that person. The mask became the face. And then he vanishes. The show writes him out. He cannot return to the park because he is wanted by both the American and Russian governments. He is on the run. A person with no country, no home, no identity that is not compromised. The group he chose over his mission cannot protect him. The mission he abandoned will not take him back. He exists in the gap between the two lives he tried to live, belonging to neither. Thomas does not appear in the series finale. He does not appear in the 25-year time skip. He is simply gone. A character who was part of the show for several seasons, who had friendships and experiences and moments of genuine connection, erased from the narrative as completely as if he had never existed. And the show does not mourn him. Nobody mentions him. Nobody wonders where he ended up. The gap he leaves is filled by the show's natural forward momentum, the same way gaps in real friend groups are filled by time and proximity, and the slow, unconscious process of forgetting. That is Thomas's ending, not a resolution, an absence. The show is telling you something uncomfortable here. It is telling you that not every story gets a conclusion. Not every person who passes through your life gets a final chapter. Some people just leave, and the world adjusts. And eventually, you stop noticing the space where they used to be. There is a specific kind of loneliness in that. Not Thomas's loneliness, though his is considerable. The loneliness of the people he left behind. The loneliness of realizing that someone you spent years with was performing the entire time. That the friendship you thought was real was, at best, a complicated negotiation between duty and desire. Thomas chose his friends in the end. But the fact that there was ever a choice, the fact that betraying them was on the table, changes the meaning of everything that came before. The show does not dwell on this. It moves on. That is the point. That is what makes Thomas's story one of the most realistic things regular show ever did. People disappear. People are not who they said they were. And life continues. But Thomas's story also illuminates something about how regular show handles loss in general. The show is populated with departures, characters who arrive, matter for a while, and then vanish. Not just Thomas. Think about Death, the recurring character who appears across multiple seasons, voiced by Julian Holloway, with a dry British wit that turns the Grim Reaper into something almost charming. Death is a person the park crew interacts with repeatedly. They babysit his son in Dead at 8, Season 3, Episode 27, May 28, 2012. They compete against him in eating contests. They negotiate with him for the lives of their friends. Death is not a stranger. Death is a neighbor. A difficult, dangerous neighbor with the power to end your existence, but a neighbor nonetheless. And the show normalizes that. It normalizes the presence of death, literal death, in the lives of these characters. It treats mortality not as a crisis, but as a context, something that is always there. Something you learn to live alongside. And when characters do leave, whether through death or departure or disappearance, the show processes the loss not through grand mourning, but through the quiet, ongoing act of continuing to exist without them. That is the framework within which Thomas's absence sits. He is gone the way people are gone, not dramatically, not with a funeral or a memorial or a moment of collective grief. Just gone. A seat at the table that is empty. A name that comes up less and less. A memory that fades not because it does not matter, but because new memories take its place. The show understands that this is how most loss works, not with an explosion, with a fade. The person you used to see every day becomes the person you think about sometimes, becomes the person you mention at reunions, becomes the person you have to describe to new friends who never knew them, becomes, eventually, a story about a goat who was actually a spy, who was actually your friend, who was actually gone. Regular show treats its departures with the same honesty it treats everything else. No sugarcoating, no false comfort. Just the plain fact of absence and the plain fact that life continues around it. Now, we have traced the endings of the characters who were part of the park's daily life. But there are two more people whose endings are essential to understanding what regular show is actually about. Two people who are not defined by their relationship to the park, but by their relationship to a single person. Two women who loved Mordecai, or tried to, or wanted to, or thought they did. Two women whose endings the show treats with a specificity and a respect that most animated shows would never bother with. We need to talk about Margaret and CJ. Margaret Smith is a cardinal who works at the coffee shop. She is Mordecai's first significant love interest, the person around whom his entire romantic identity crystallizes in the early seasons. And the show takes her seriously, not as a love interest, as a person. Margaret has ambitions. She wants to be a journalist. She wants to go to college. She wants a career and a future and a life that is hers, not defined by the Blue Jay who cannot manage to ask her out. And that is what makes her departure in Season 4 so powerful. She does not leave because Mordecai pushed her away. She does not leave because the relationship fails. She leaves because she has something she wants more. A dream, an opportunity, a chance to become the person she is supposed to be. And that person does not live at the coffee shop across from the park. That person is somewhere else, doing something else, building a life that has nothing to do with gumball machines and immortal yetis and cosmic battles over enchanted objects. Margaret chooses herself. And the show, remarkably for a series aimed at a young audience, does not punish her for it. It does not frame her departure as a betrayal. It does not position her as the one who got away, the woman who made the wrong choice by prioritizing her career over her relationship. It simply lets her go, with dignity, with agency, with the full support of the narrative. When the park dome returns to Earth in the series finale, Margaret is there. She rushes out of a news station to greet Eileen. She became a journalist. She built the career she left the park to build, and she and Mordecai did not end up together. J.G. Quintel was explicit about this. Mordecai messed it up with Margaret. Not because Margaret was flawed, or because the timing was wrong, or because the universe conspired against them. Because Mordecai was not ready, and by the time he was ready, Margaret's life had moved on. She did not wait. She should not have waited. The show is clear about that. Margaret's ending is the ending of a woman who made the right choice, who chose her dream over her comfort, who left the easy relationship for the hard road and found what she was looking for. The show does not give her a husband or children in the 25-year time skip. It does not define her ending by her romantic status. It defines her by her career, by the things she left to pursue, by the choice she made in season 4 that the rest of the show validated completely. That is not a small thing. In a medium that almost always defines female characters by who they end up with, regular show defines Margaret by what she does, not who she loves, what she builds. And the quiet radicalism of that choice is one of the things that separates this show from its contemporaries. CJ is a different story, a sadder one in some ways, because CJ does not leave Mordecai. Mordecai leaves CJ, not with a clean break or a dramatic exit, with the slow, grinding erosion of trust that happens when a person cannot stop looking over their shoulder at someone else. CJ, Cloudy J, voiced by Linda Cardellini, enters the show as someone who is, by every available metric, a better match for Mordecai than Margaret. She shares his interests. She matches his energy. She does not require him to be someone he is not. And for a stretch of seasons 5 and 6, their relationship works. It is functional and warm, and the kind of relationship that most people would be grateful to have. But Mordecai cannot stop thinking about Margaret. Not because he loves Margaret more, because he does not know how to close a door. And CJ can see it. She can see the way Mordecai's attention divides when Margaret is in the room. She can see the hesitation, the guilt, the specific kind of distraction that tells a person their partner is not fully present. And she can see it because she is paying attention, because she cares enough to notice. There is a specific kind of cruelty in what Mordecai does to CJ, and the show does not flinch from naming it. It is not the cruelty of malice. It is the cruelty of indecision. The cruelty of keeping someone in a relationship while part of you is elsewhere. CJ can feel it. She can feel the divided attention, the moments of distance, the specific quality of distraction that belongs to a person who is thinking about someone else. And she stays anyway, for a while, because she loves him, because she wants what they have to be enough, because she is hoping that if she waits long enough, if she is patient enough, if she is good enough, the distraction will pass, and she will have all of him instead of most of him. That does not happen. It never happens. The show knows it will never happen, and CJ knows it will never happen, and the only person who does not know it is Mordecai, because Mordecai is constitutionally incapable of admitting to himself that he is doing something wrong until the damage is already done. The show depicts this dynamic with a precision that is almost clinical. It does not dramatize it. It does not add musical stings or dramatic lighting. It just shows two people in a relationship where one of them is fully present and the other is not, and the slow, grinding erosion of trust that follows. CJ does not leave because Mordecai cheated. He did not cheat. She leaves because of something worse than cheating. She leaves because Mordecai could not give her the one thing she needed: certainty. The simple, unambiguous certainty that she was his choice, not his consolation, not his second option, his choice. The breakup, when it comes in dumped at the altar, is not a dramatic confrontation. It is the inevitable conclusion of a pattern that CJ recognized long before Mordecai did. She leaves because staying would require her to accept being second, and she has too much self-respect for that. CJ does not appear in the series finale. She does not appear in the 25-year time skip. According to show writer Matt Price, she becomes a professional dodgeball player. That detail, revealed outside the show itself, carries a specific kind of energy. It is not sentimental. It is not wistful. It is active. CJ does not spend her life mourning what she lost. She throws things, hard, competitively. She channels whatever she felt about Mordecai into something physical and aggressive and completely her own. CJ's ending is the ending of a woman who was hurt by someone's inability to choose her and who chose herself instead. It is not a happy ending in the conventional sense. There is no indication that she finds romantic love, no partner, no family. But there is also no indication that she needs those things. The show does not frame CJ's singleness as a tragedy. It frames it as a result. Mordecai's inability to commit created consequences. CJ is one of those consequences. And she is fine, not fixed, not healed, not over it. Fine, which is a different thing entirely. And then there is Eileen. Eileen, who is not part of the Margaret CJ discussion because she belongs to a different story entirely. Eileen, who watched the romantic chaos of Mordecai's life from the coffee shop counter and chose a completely different path. Eileen Roberts is a mole. She is quiet, intelligent, organized, and possessed of a patience that borders on the superhuman. She works at the coffee shop alongside Margaret, and her crush on Rigby is one of the show's longest-running threads. But unlike Mordecai's romances, which are defined by drama and indecision and the inability to choose, Eileen's love story is defined by steadiness. She sees Rigby. She sees who he actually is, not who he pretends to be. And she waits, not passively, not as a doormat. She waits the way a person waits for rain, with certainty that it will come, and patience born from that certainty. What makes Eileen remarkable is not her relationship with Rigby. It is her existence independent of it. Minty Lewis, who voiced Eileen, was also a writer on the show. And that dual role, performer and creator, gives Eileen a specificity that many animated love interests lack. She is not a reward for Rigby's growth. She is not a prize he earns by becoming a better person. She is a person with her own intelligence, her own interests, her own inner life that the show respects even when it does not always foreground. Eileen's ending, marriage to Rigby, 2 daughters, is not her completion. It is her choice. She chose Rigby knowing exactly who he was. She chose him before the diploma. She chose him before the cosmic war. She chose him when he was still the person most people would have walked away from. And the fact that she chose him then, when he had nothing to offer except himself, is what makes their ending feel earned in a way that Mordecai's romances never did. The show understands something about Eileen that it takes most people a lifetime to learn. That the person who loves you before you deserve it is not settling. They are seeing something you cannot see yet. Eileen saw the Rigby of Season 8 when everyone else only saw the Rigby of Season 1. She saw the father, the graduate, the man, when everyone else saw the slacker, the dropout, the raccoon who cannot win at punchies. And she waited for reality to catch up to her vision. And it did. 25 years later, surrounded by daughters, it did. Together, Margaret and CJ form a portrait of what happens on the other side of a love story. The show spends seasons inside Mordecai's perspective, experiencing his romantic confusion as if it is the whole story. But it is not the whole story. There are 2 other people in this triangle, and they both have lives that continue after Mordecai's narrative moves on. Margaret becomes a journalist. CJ becomes an athlete. Neither of them defines themselves by the man who could not figure out what he wanted. They define themselves by what they built after he was gone. There is something the show does with Margaret and CJ that most animated shows would never consider. It gives them interior lives that exist independently of the male protagonist. Margaret is not waiting for Mordecai. She is building a career. CJ is not pining for Mordecai. She is competing in professional athletics. Neither of them is defined by the relationship that ended. They are defined by what they did next. And the show trusts the audience to understand that the what next matters more than the what was. This is unusual in animation. In most animated series, female love interests exist in suspended animation when they are off-screen. They are assumed to be thinking about the protagonist, waiting for the protagonist, existing in a state of romantic availability in case the protagonist circles back. Regular show refuses that model completely. Margaret and CJ have agency. They have trajectories. They have futures that belong to them and no one else. And the audience's discomfort with that, the fact that so many fans were upset that Mordecai did not end up with Margaret or CJ, is itself a commentary on how deeply we have internalized the idea that a love interest belongs to the protagonist. She does not. Margaret does not belong to Mordecai. CJ does not belong to Mordecai. They belong to themselves the whole time. The show just finally made that visible. That is the show's final statement on Mordecai's love life, not who he ended up with. What the people he hurt did with their lives after the hurting was over. And the answer, in both cases, is they were fine. They moved on. They became whole, separate, fully realized people who did not need Mordecai to complete them. That is not a small thing. That is the show telling you that the main character is not the center of everyone's universe, that the people he hurt have their own stories, that his growth came at a cost, and the people who paid that cost deserve to have their outcomes acknowledged. And here is the thing that ties all of this together. The thing that makes regular show's treatment of its female characters feel so unusual and so necessary. The show never punishes Margaret or CJ for not ending up with Mordecai. It never frames their independence as a consolation prize. It never implies that they are missing something by not having a man at the center of their stories. It treats their autonomy as an achievement, as the natural result of being fully realized people who exist for their own purposes, not for the purpose of completing someone else's arc. That is rare in animation. It is rare in fiction, period. The love interest who becomes a person is one of the most difficult transformations for any narrative to pull off, because the gravitational pull of the protagonist's perspective is so strong. Everything bends toward the main character. Everyone exists in relation to the main character. And regular show, in its final act, deliberately resists that pull. It says, Margaret has a life. CJ has a life. Eileen has a life. These lives are not subplots, they are stories. Stories that the show respects enough to give them endings that belong to the women who lived them, not to the man who passed through them. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is one more ending we need to discuss before we talk about the show itself. One more character whose resolution is so intertwined with the fabric of the series that separating him from it feels almost impossible. He is not a person, exactly. He is a place. Or rather, he is the person who made the place possible. The person without whom none of this, not the park, not the jobs, not the friendships, not the cosmic battles, none of it would exist. We need to talk about Mr. Maellard. Mr. Maellard is the owner of the park. He is Pops' adoptive father. He is voiced by the late David Ogden Stiers, an actor whose career stretched from MASH to Disney voice work, and whose voice carries a specific kind of authority that the show uses to devastating effect. Mr. Maellard is gruff, dismissive, the kind of boss who makes you feel small, not through cruelty, but through indifference. He cannot remember Benson's name. He barely acknowledges the existence of the other park workers. He treats Pops with a mixture of protective concern and impatient frustration, the way a parent treats a child they love but cannot understand. And the show, for most of its run, lets you believe that Mr. Maellard is just that, a difficult boss, a distant father, a minor character who exists to create obstacles and add texture to the workplace dynamic. But then Pops dies, and Mr. Maellard stands in front of a statue of his son, and he weeps. That image, that single image, retroactively rewrites every interaction Mr. Maellard ever had with Pops. Every dismissal, every moment of impatience, every time he seemed unable or unwilling to connect with his own son. Because now you know the ending. Now you know that Mr. Maellard outlives Pops. Now you know that the gruff, distant father has to stand in a park and look at a bronze version of the child he could not protect. The show does not explain what Mr. Maellard felt. It does not give him a speech. It does not show you a flashback of tender moments that reveal a softer side. It just shows you the grief, raw, unmediated. A gumball machine walks out of his office and manages his anger. An immortal Yeti skips through his mourning. A lollipop man flies into the sun, and a father stands in front of a statue and cries. In the 25-year time skip, Mr. Maellard is gone. He has passed away at some point in the intervening decades. There is a statue of him too, alongside Pops's memorial. The park he built, the park that served as the stage for every story the show ever told, continues without him. Benson manages it now. New employees have replaced the old ones. The grass is the same grass. The sky is the same sky. But the Maellards are gone, father and son, both of them memorialized in stone, standing in a park that exists because one of them built it and the other one saved it. And the people who walk past those statues every day, the new employees and the visitors and the children playing on the lawn, have no idea what those statues represent. They do not know about the cosmic battles. They do not know about the sacrifice. They do not know about the father who wept. They just see statues. That is what time does. It turns people into monuments, and monuments into scenery. That is Mr. Maellard's ending. Not a character arc exactly. A context. A frame around the picture that changes how you see everything inside it. The park is not just a setting. It is a legacy. It is the thing a father built, possibly without knowing why, possibly guided by some cosmic instinct he could never articulate, that gave his son a home. A place to be happy. A place to find friends. A place to grow into the person who would one day save the universe. The show does something remarkable with Mr. Maellard in the seasons before the finale. It makes him sympathetic without making him likable. It never softens him. He remains gruff and dismissive and difficult right up until the end. He never has a moment of warm reconciliation with Benson. He never sits down with Pops and tells him how much he loves him. He never becomes the father that Pops deserves. And that is the point. Because that is how a lot of fathers are. Not cruel, not abusive, just limited. Limited in their ability to express what they feel. Limited by the generation they grew up in, the expectations placed on them, the specific emotional vocabulary they were given. Mr. Maellard loves Pops. You can see it in the way he worries. You can see it in the way he built the park, created a safe space, hired people to look after his son. But he cannot say it. He cannot bridge the gap between the love he feels and the words that would communicate it. And Pops, innocent Pops, does not need the words. Pops feels the love anyway. Pops always felt everything. The weeping at the statue is Mr. Maellard's entire emotional life compressed into a single image. Years of unexpressed love, suddenly, violently, irreversibly expressed, but too late. Always too late. The words he could not say in life become tears he cannot stop after death. And the show holds on that image because the show understands that some things only become visible when they are already lost. Mr. Maellard built the stage. Pops performed the sacrifice. And the stage stands long after both of them are gone. That is the show's final word on parenthood. You build something. You give it to your children. You watch them do things with it that you could never have imagined. And then they are gone, and you are gone, and the thing you built remains, holding the memory of what happened there like a jar holds water. The shape persists. The substance evaporates. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is one more element of regular show's ending that deserves attention before we discuss the show's legacy. And it is not a character at all. It is a place. The park itself. The park is never named. It is just the park. A public green space with a house where the employees live, a snack bar, walking paths, fountains, and the kind of vague municipal charm that suggests a small city trying its best to provide recreation for residents who mostly ignore it. It is, by any objective measure, not a remarkable place. There are no famous landmarks, no historical significance, no reason for anyone who does not work there to think about it twice. And yet the park is the most important location in the show. Not because of what it is, because of what it contains. The park is the container for every relationship, every conflict, every mundane afternoon, and supernatural catastrophe that regular show depicts across 8 seasons. It is where Mordecai fell in love, and where Mordecai failed at love. It is where Rigby avoided responsibility, and where Rigby learned to be responsible. It is where Benson yelled, and where Benson stopped yelling. It is where Pops was happy. That last one is the heaviest. The park is where Pops was happy. The first episode of regular show, The Power, Season 1, Episode 1, September 6th, 2010, begins in the park. Mordecai and Rigby discover a magical keyboard that can make anything happen. They use it to try to get raises so they can pay for a hole they accidentally punched in the wall. The premise is perfectly mundane. The escalation is perfectly absurd. A keyboard that reshapes reality. A golf cart ride to the moon. A monster that fuses Mordecai and Rigby's features into a grotesque amalgamation. And through all of it, the park sits there, patient, unchanging, waiting for them to come back. The formula is deceptively simple. Every episode begins with a mundane problem. Mordecai and Rigby need to finish a task. They want to buy a grilled cheese sandwich. They need to return a library book. The problem is ordinary, the kind of thing anyone could face. And then, through a series of escalations that are simultaneously absurd and internally logical, the mundane problem becomes a supernatural crisis. The grilled cheese sandwich summons a cosmic entity. The library book opens a portal to another dimension. The task they need to finish attracts the attention of a demon, or a ghost, or a sentient machine that will destroy the park if they fail. This formula works because it mirrors something true about life. Small problems become big problems when you avoid them. The assignment you put off becomes the emergency. The conversation you dodge becomes the confrontation. The thing you thought was insignificant turns out to be the thing that changes everything. Regular show takes that ordinary escalation and makes it literal. It makes the metaphor into a monster, and then it makes the characters fight the monster with the same tools they would use to solve the original mundane problem: friendship, teamwork, showing up. The park is the container for all of this escalation. It is the place where the mundane and the supernatural coexist, where you can mow the lawn in the morning and fight an interdimensional war criminal in the afternoon, where the boundaries between ordinary and extraordinary are so thin that crossing them feels less like an event and more like a commute. That is the structural promise of regular show. No matter how far the chaos carries you, you always come back to the park. The park is home base. The park is the constant. The park is the place where everything resets to normal, where the supernatural recedes and the mundane returns, where you clock in tomorrow and do it all over again. Until Season 8, when the park goes to space. The decision to launch the park into orbit for the final season is one of the boldest structural choices in the history of American animated television. The show's creator, J.G. Quintel, has talked about how the idea seemed too extreme at first. Sending the characters to space felt wrong in the middle of the series because it would break the promise. The park is home. You always come back. Space is not home. Space is the opposite of home. Space is infinite and empty and hostile, and there is no ground beneath your feet, and no snack bar, and no golf carts, and no morning meetings where Benson hands out assignments nobody will follow. But at the end, the promise can break. At the end, the characters can leave home because they have to, because the story demands it, because the cosmic stakes that have been quietly building in the background for 7 seasons finally surface, and the park is no longer big enough to contain them. The characters go to space, not because the writers ran out of park stories. They go to space because the show is about growing up, and growing up means leaving the place where you were safe. Season 8 premiered on September 26, 2016, and ran through to the series finale on January 16, 2017. It consisted of 27 episodes, and every single one of them took place in space. The park dome, the artificial bubble that preserved a small piece of Earth within the void, became the new setting. And within that dome, the show did something extraordinary. It maintained its identity while completely changing its context. The episodes of Season 8 still follow the regular show formula. A mundane problem arises. The characters respond. The situation escalates. Supernatural chaos ensues. Resolution occurs. But now the mundane problem is happening inside a dome floating through the cosmos, and the supernatural chaos is tinged with the knowledge that outside the dome, There is nothing. No other parks. No other towns, no other people. Just the infinite emptiness of space and the growing threat of anti-Pops, who is coming, who is always coming, who has been coming since before the universe was born. The space setting strips the characters of every external support system they had. No coffee shop. No Margaret and Eileen serving them drinks across the counter. No town to go home to. No world to take for granted. They have only each other and the dome and the knowledge that everything they are fighting for, everything they have built, everything they love, exists within a bubble that one cosmic punch could shatter. That is the show's final statement on what these characters mean to each other. When everything else is taken away, when the park is floating through space with nothing around it, the characters still matter. Their relationships still hold. Their jokes still land. Their arguments still happen. The setting changed. The people did not. And that consistency, that absolute refusal to let the external circumstances change who these people fundamentally are, is the show's way of saying that character is not a response to environment. Character is what remains when the environment disappears. The park goes to space, and for an entire season, the characters exist in a context that is completely alien to them. No grass, no benches, no familiar sky, just the dome, the artificial containment field that preserves a small piece of the park inside an environment that is trying to kill them. And within that dome, they continue to be who they are. They continue to argue and joke and care about each other and avoid their responsibilities and occasionally save the universe. The setting changed. The people did not. Because the show understands that home is not a place. Home is the people you would cross the universe to protect. When the dome returns to Earth after the finale, the park is still there. The grass is the same. The sky is the same. The benches are the same. But Mr. Maellard will die. Pops is already gone. The employees will scatter. Mordecai will leave for the art world. Rigby will leave for the suburbs. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost will build lives elsewhere. Only Benson and Skips will remain. The manager and the handyman. The structure and the maintenance. The two roles that a park needs to continue existing regardless of who comes and goes. 25 years later, there are new employees. New faces at the morning meeting. New people who do not know what the statues represent or why the Yeti skips instead of walks. The park endures. Not because it is special, because it is ordinary. Because ordinary things outlast the people who use them. The bench you sat on when you were 23 will be there when you are 48, but you will not be the same person sitting on it. And eventually you will stop sitting on it entirely, and someone else will take your place, and they will have no idea that this was your bench, that this is where you ate lunch and argued with your best friend and avoided your work and, once, watched the sky split open and something impossible come through. That is the park's ending. Continuity. The park continues. The people leave. That is how places work. That is how life works. You are a temporary resident of every space you inhabit, and the space does not notice when you go. Now, we have talked about every major character. We have traced every ending, every resolution, every quiet goodbye. But there is one more thing to discuss. One more ending that encompasses all the others. Because regular show itself has an ending. The show, as an object, as a piece of art, as a thing that existed in the world for 7 years and then stopped existing, has a conclusion. And that conclusion is not just the finale, it is the totality of what the show chose to be. Regular show began as a student film. 2, actually. The Naive Man from Lollyland, created by J.G. Quintel at the California Institute of the Arts in 2005, and 2 in the AM/PM, created in 2006. The first was a sweet, strange short about a lollipop ambassador visiting the United States. The second was a raunchier piece about 2 gas station clerks on a late-night shift who accidentally ingest hallucinogenic candy and begin seeing the world as populated by anthropomorphic creatures. A blue jay, a gumball machine, a lollipop man. The building blocks of regular show, emerging from the specific, personal, unfiltered imagination of a young animator at an art school in Southern California. Quintel won 2 awards for The Naive Man from Lollyland at the Nicktoons Film Festival in August 2005, the Producer's Choice and Student Animator Awards. 2 in the AM PM was selected for the 2007 Spike and Mike's Sick and Twisted Animation Festival. These were not mainstream accolades. They were niche, animation world recognition, the kind of validation that tells a young artist they are onto something, even if they cannot yet articulate what. After Cal Arts, Quintel worked in the animation industry. He did storyboard revision work on Star Wars Clone Wars. He worked on Camp Lazlo. He became creative director on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, a show that served as an incubator for an entire generation of Cartoon Network creators. And somewhere during all of that, the idea that would become regular show kept developing, kept refining itself, kept growing from a student project into something that could sustain 244 episodes across 8 seasons. The show came to life through Cartoon Network's Cartoonstitute program, an artist-driven initiative that allowed young creators to develop pilots without network interference or focus testing. Only 14 of a planned 39 shorts were completed before the network pulled the plug on the program. Quintel's was one of the survivors. Regular show was greenlit as a full series, and it premiered on September 6, 2010, at 8:15 p.m. on Cartoon Network. And here is the thing about regular show's origin that matters for understanding its ending. The show was personal. It came from one person's specific vision, one person's college experience, one person's memory of being young and aimless, and surrounded by friends who were equally young and equally aimless. Quintel has said in interviews that the show was about 2 friends at a point in their lives right out of college, dealing with relationships and work. That is it. That is the pitch. 2 guys in their 20s trying to figure it out. And the show ran long enough to actually show them figuring it out. That is rare. Most animated comedies freeze their characters in place. The slacker stays a slacker. The responsible one stays responsible. The relationships cycle through will they won't they without ever resolving. Regular show refused to do that. It let its characters age, not literally but emotionally. It let them make mistakes that had consequences. It let relationships end. It let people grow apart. It let the status quo change, permanently, irreversibly, in ways that could never be undone. By the time Season 8 arrived, the show had earned its ending. Quintel made the decision to end the series on his own terms, before the network forced his hand. He wanted advance notice so he could wrap things up properly, and when that notification never came, he decided to end things anyway. The final season took the characters to space, a radical departure from the park setting that Quintel had initially dismissed as too ambitious, but ultimately embraced, because, as he put it is the end, so it does not matter. That statement, it is the end, so it does not matter. Think about what that actually means. It means freedom. It means the show, in its final season, could do anything, go anywhere, become anything, because there were no future seasons to protect, no status quo to preserve, no need to make sure the characters were back at the park by the end of the episode so that next week's story could start from the same place. The show was ending, and the ending freed it. Season 8 used that freedom to tell the biggest story it had ever attempted. Pops as a cosmic entity, Anti-Pops as the destroyer, the universal cycle, the battle for existence itself. And within that enormous cosmic framework, the show never lost sight of the thing that made it matter: the characters, the relationships, the specific, personal, grounded reality of people who care about each other, trying to protect the things they have built together. The finale aired on January 16, 2017. 3 parts. The 244th episode. It drew 1.33 million viewers for the first part and 1.37 million for the second, making it the most watched episode of the final season. And it ended with Pops watching a VHS tape and saying, "Jolly good show." That final image, the VHS tape. Think about why the show chose that specific technology. Not a streaming service, not a digital file. A VHS tape, physical, analog, warm. The kind of thing you find in a box in your parents' basement, slightly degraded, the tracking a little off, the picture slightly fuzzy. A VHS tape is nostalgia given physical form. It is the past preserved imperfectly, the way memory preserves things imperfectly, with warmth and softness instead of clarity. The music that plays during the time skip is David Bowie's Heroes. Bowie died on January 10, 2016, almost exactly 1 year before the finale aired. The choice of song is both a tribute and a thesis. Heroes is a song about temporary transcendence, about two people standing at the Berlin Wall, knowing that the wall is there and the guards are there, and the reality of their situation is unbearable, and choosing, for one day, to be heroes anyway, to be brave anyway, to love each other anyway. That is what the park crew did for 8 seasons, in the face of cosmic threats and supernatural chaos and the ordinary grinding difficulty of being alive. They chose to be there for each other, not forever. Nobody gets forever, except Skips, and even Skips does not get to keep the people he loves, just for one day, or one season, or one show, one regular show. Pops watches the story of regular show on a VHS tape, from beyond, from somewhere outside the narrative. And he says it was good. He says it was a good show. And the double meaning is the whole point. Regular show. A regular show. A show about regular things. About regular people. About the ordinary business of growing up. Falling in love. Losing people. Finding yourself. And getting through the day. There is a reason the 25-year time skip is set to David Bowie's Heroes. Not just because Bowie died in January 2016, a year before the finale aired, and the choice carries an elegiac weight that extends beyond the show itself. Because the song is about a specific kind of heroism. Not the heroism of cosmic battles or supernatural powers. The heroism of standing next to someone. The heroism of being present. The heroism of choosing to be with the person you love, even if it is just for one day. Even if everything around you is falling apart. Even if the wall between you and the world is closing in. The park crew are heroes. Not because they saved the universe, though they did, because they showed up, every day, for each other, through every impossible situation, every escalating crisis, every moment where a reasonable person would have walked away. They stayed. Mordecai stayed for Rigby. Rigby stayed for Mordecai. Benson stayed for all of them, even the ones who drove him to the brink of insanity. Skips stayed for everyone, forever, and Pops stayed until staying was not enough. And then he left in the only way that mattered. The song plays over images of their futures. Weddings, children, careers, art galleries and DJ booths and suburban afternoons, and park maintenance, and the quiet, accumulated weight of lives lived honestly. And the song says, we can be heroes, just for one day. And the show says, yes, one day, or 8 seasons, or 25 years, or an eternity, if you are Skips, standing in a park that has outlived everyone you love, skipping because a woman you lost centuries ago used to skip beside you. The show won a Primetime Emmy Award in 2012 for the episode Excellent in the category of Outstanding Short Format Animated Program. It received 6 Primetime Emmy nominations total, 7 Annie Award nominations, and 3 British Academy Children's Award nominations across its run. It was recognized not just as entertainment but as art, as something that mattered, as something that used the freedom of animation and the structure of an 11-minute comedy to say things about human experience that live-action drama could not. Mark Mothersbaugh, co-founder of Devo, composed the show's music. Mark Hamill voiced Skips. Sam Marin voiced 3 major characters, Benson, Pops, and Muscle Man. Minty Lewis, who voiced Eileen, was also a writer on the show. Sam Marin voiced 3 characters. 3. Benson, Pops, and Muscle Man. The furious manager, the innocent dreamer, and the crude jokester. 3 completely different people, inhabiting completely different emotional registers, performed by the same human being. That is the kind of versatility that makes a show like Regular Show possible. The characters feel distinct because the performances are distinct. Benson's tight, controlled fury sounds nothing like Pops's breathy, delighted wonder, which sounds nothing like Muscle Man's aggressive, nasal bravado. 1 voice actor, 3 complete human beings. That is craft. The voice cast was not a collection of celebrity cameos. It was a group of people who cared about these characters as much as the audience did, who inhabited them, who gave them the specific texture of real personalities rather than the generic smoothness of performed ones. The show was animated traditionally, hand-drawn on paper and digitally composited by Serum Animation in South Korea. Each episode took approximately 9 months to produce. A 35-member production team in Burbank, California oversaw the creative work. The process was slow, deliberate, and deeply personal, in a way that mass-produced animation often is not. And all of that, all of the care and the craft and the time and the talent, was in service of a very simple idea. Two friends at a park, growing up, making mistakes, living their lives. And all of it came from a student film, from a young man at CalArts who drew a blue jay and a raccoon and a gumball machine and did not know yet that he was building something that would matter to millions of people. J.G. Quintel was 27 when Regular Show premiered. He was 34 when it ended. The show grew up alongside its creator. The person who made it was not the same person at the end as he was at the beginning, and the show reflects that. The early episodes are looser, wilder, more willing to let chaos be the point. The later episodes are tighter, more focused on character, more willing to sit in silence and let a moment breathe. The show matured the way Mordecai matured, the way Rigby matured, the way all of them matured. Not in a straight line, in fits and starts and setbacks and breakthroughs, messily, humanly. There is a connection between how a show is made and what it becomes. Regular Show was animated traditionally, hand-drawn on paper, by a relatively small team. Each episode took 9 months. The process was slow and deliberate in a way that allowed the creators to pour genuine care into every frame. This was not assembly line animation. This was craft. The kind of craft that you can feel even if you cannot name it. The lines are slightly imperfect. The movements are slightly uneven. The world feels handmade in a way that digital perfection can never replicate. And that handmade quality is part of what makes the show feel so personal, so intimate, so much like a letter written by someone who cares about you. Regular Show is, in the end, about exactly what its title says it is. A regular show, not in the dismissive sense, in the profound one. A show about the regular experience of being alive, of wanting things and not getting them, of getting things and not wanting them anymore, of losing people and finding new ones, of growing up so slowly that you do not notice it happening until one day you look around and everything is different, and you are different, and the park is the same, but the people in it are not. The show premiered when its core audience was young, 12, 13, 14 years old. By the time it ended, those viewers were 19, 20, 21. They had grown up alongside Mordecai and Rigby. They had experienced the same disorientation, the same uncertainty, the same terrifying transition from childhood to whatever comes next. And the show met them there. It did not talk down to them. It did not pretend that growing up was easy or fun or straightforward. It told them the truth, that it hurts, that you will lose people, that the person you are at 13 is not the person you will be at 20, and that is okay. That is not just okay. That is the point. Regular Show trusted its audience in a way that very few animated shows do. It trusted them to understand subtext, to recognize that a gumball machine yelling about lawn care is actually a man screaming about loneliness, to see that a Yeti who skips instead of walks is actually a lover who mourns instead of forgets, to know that a lollipop man watching a VHS tape is actually the show itself, watching the audience, saying goodbye, saying it was worth it, saying jolly good show one final time. That trust is the show's greatest legacy. Not the Emmy, not the ratings, not the cultural impact or the meme potential or the place in animation history, though all of those things are real and earned. The legacy is the trust, the decision, made at CalArts by a 23-year-old with a pencil and a weird idea, that the audience could handle the truth. That kids watching a cartoon about a blue jay and a raccoon could understand grief and loss and the cost of growing up. That they deserved a show that respected them enough to tell a real story with a real ending. That is the ending of Regular Show, not the cosmic battle, not the sacrifice, not the 25-year time skip or the reunions or the babies or the careers. The ending is the recognition that all of it, every episode, every character, every supernatural escalation that spun out of a mundane afternoon, was about the most ordinary thing in the world. Living, just living. Waking up and going to work and fighting with your friends and falling in love with the wrong person, and eventually, if you are lucky, with the right one. Playing video games, eating lunch, standing in a park, growing old. Jolly good show. The characters of Regular Show end where all characters end, in the specific, individual, unrepeatable shapes of the lives they built. Pops ends in sacrifice and transcendence. Mordecai ends in art and fatherhood and a love he had to earn by failing first. Rigby ends in domesticity and contentment and the quiet pride of a man who finally finished what he started. Benson ends in peace. Skips ends in continuity, the eternal keeper, the one who stays when everyone else goes. Muscle Man ends in family. High Five Ghost ends in adventure. Thomas ends in absence. Margaret ends in career. CJ ends in self-sufficiency. Mr. Maellard ends in a statue and a memory and a park that outlives him. Each ending is different. Each ending is true. And each ending says the same thing, in a different key, in a different register, with a different emotional frequency. Growing up is real. It costs something, and it is worth the cost. There is a version of this essay that ends with a comprehensive ranking of the endings. A definitive statement about which character got the best resolution, which got the worst, which one the show served most faithfully. But that would miss the point, because the endings of regular show are not competing with each other. They are harmonizing. Each one plays a different note in the same chord. Pops's sacrifice, Mordecai's return to art, Rigby's quiet contentment, Benson's hard-won peace, Skips's eternal vigil, Muscle Man's overflowing home, High Five Ghost's unlikely adventure, Thomas's permanent absence, Margaret's professional fulfillment, CJ's fierce independence, Eileen's patient faith rewarded, Mr. Maellard's stone memorial in a park that outlives everyone. Each of those endings, taken alone, is good. Taken together, they are something more. They are a complete philosophy of human experience, expressed through cartoon characters who should not be able to carry this much weight but somehow do. The philosophy is this: there is no single right way to grow up. There is no template. There is no manual. There is only the specific, individual, unrepeatable path that each person walks, and the people they walk it with, and the places they walk it through, and the things they leave behind. Some people grow up by succeeding, some by failing, some by loving someone who loves them back, some by loving someone who does not, some by staying in one place forever, some by leaving everything they know, some by sacrifice, some by survival, and all of it is real. All of it counts. All of it is a valid way to turn the chaos of being alive into something that resembles, if you squint, a story. That is what regular show gave us. Not just a show about two slackers at a park, a show about the slow, difficult, beautiful, terrifying process of becoming a person. A real person, with a real life. A life that starts somewhere and ends somewhere else, and is full of things you did not expect, and people you did not plan for, and losses you cannot prepare for, no matter how much time you have. There is a reason people fall asleep to this show. Not despite the cosmic battles and the supernatural escalations. Because of them. Because regular show takes the anxiety of being alive, the overwhelming, formless, impossible to articulate anxiety of trying to figure out who you are, and what you want, and how to get through the day, and it gives that anxiety a shape. It turns it into a monster you can fight, a curse you can break, a villain you can defeat by arm wrestling death, or eating a massive omelet, or hugging your evil twin brother and flying into the sun. The show externalizes the internal. It takes the things that keep you awake at night, the fear of failure, the fear of loneliness, the fear of growing old and looking back and realizing you wasted your time, and it puts them on screen as tangible, fightable things. And when the characters defeat those things, or learn to live with them, or sacrifice themselves to end them, the listener feels a little bit of that resolution too. The anxiety loosens, the chest unclenches, the breathing slows. That is why this works as sleep content, not because it is boring, because it is safe. The show creates a world where problems are enormous and solutions exist, where friendship is real, where growing up hurts but leads somewhere worth going, where the worst thing that can happen, the end of everything, can be met with a hug and a flight into the sun and the knowledge that it was worth it. That it was all worth it. The characters of regular show end where all characters should end, in the specific, individual, unrepeatable shapes of the lives they chose to build. And the listener, drifting toward sleep, carries those shapes with them into the dark, not as plot points, as comfort, as the quiet assurance that even cartoon characters, even blue jays and raccoons and gumball machines and ghosts and yetis and a man with a lollipop for a head can find their way home. The show ended on January 16, 2017. The park is still there. The statues are still standing. And somewhere, on a VHS tape that nobody will ever find, Pops is watching, smiling, saying the only thing that needs to be said. Jolly good show. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.